You're listening to Power Athlete Radio, a podcast dedicated to empowering your performance every damn day. Join former NFL pro and Power Athlete founder John Welborn as he dissects the greatest minds in strength, conditioning, and more. So whether your goal is to be the hammer, destroy mediocrity, or simply move the dirt, you've come to the right place. Now with the warm-up done, let the gains begin.
Hey, Power Athlete Nation. We have Mr. Craig Patterson from Madlabs on the podcast today. I've known Patty for a number of years. We got connected through our mutual friend, Rob Wolf, and he was in town. He's working with a bunch of gyms and really helping to create a more efficient micro gym. So we get into a lot of the early twists and turns of CrossFit because he was there at the very beginning, and my experience with CrossFit and understanding this model, having owned a gym of, group class fitness and running a box and whatnot, and what he's done over the last 20 years to create profitable gyms that run well and kick ass. And we get into a lot of interesting life discussions. Justin Trudeau being the love child of Fidel Castro, obviously being one of the funnier ones, which anybody that's on our Discord will get a good laugh. But a riveting conversation with an extremely intelligent person who's been doing this for a number of years, Mr. Craig Patterson.
Good.
Awesome. Cool. Hey, Power Athlete Nation. I am sitting here with Craig Patterson from Madlabs, who has journeyed from our wonderful neighbors up north in Canada, freeing a little bit of the tyranny of Justin Trudeau and enjoying a little bit of freedom down here in Texas. So, dude, thanks for being on the podcast.
Oh, JT will be gone pretty soon, I think.
He's like herpes.
Oh, dude, he's awful.
Just when you think he goes away and you take the Valtrex, he comes back.
Oh, dude, the last one he did, just ridiculous. A lot of people don't own homes anymore in Canada, and it's almost impossible. Like a two-bedroom condo in Vancouver is like $1.3 million. He came out and said, we can't let the prices come down because too many people rely on it for their retirement. But we want to make it affordable for young people. Okay, what's the math on this here? Right?
The history on that guy's pretty interesting. He had zero experience, and
he was a drama teacher.
Yeah, and his dad had experience and was like a like the head of fisheries and game and that, and had a political thing, and the name had cachet. Yeah. So they went to him and said, hey, we think we can run you and win based upon your last name.
100%.
And so that was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
Well, that's 100% it. And most of his cabinet have got no training in economics or governance or anything. Like Christina Freeland, I think it's an arts degree or something like this. And
so why do people keep electing him?
Well, they won't anymore. I think the first one, it was like, I don't know, I never voted for him, so I can't figure it out, but I'm pretty sure my parents voted for him. And I'm pretty sure my wife voted for him, maybe twice. And this time I'm like, if you vote for this fucking guy,
it's fucking over.
Dude, we're going to have words here. Like, I love you, and I'll be with you the rest of my life, but we're going to have some serious words. Anyway, I came down to Texas, and it's raining harder than it was in Vancouver. Hard to beat.
What was wild, I think I was telling you, we've been planning to get the floors done in our garage, just for a couple of reasons. One is we live next door to 60 horses, so there's a lot of dirt. The other thing too is snakes and spiders hide pretty well, so you need to lighten the floors so you can kind of see them. Yeah. So that was one of the prerequisites, because there's lizards and crazy shit. My wife's like, dude, we need these floors to be white so we can see what's on them. I'm like, all right, I'm down on a clean garage. So we empty everything. I look at the forecast, no rain. Looks great. Everything's fine. And then all of a sudden, as soon as I emptied the garage, tropical storm, 6 to 8 inches, and everything's fucking soaked.
Yeah, I heard you complaining about I think you just had the walkway done or something too, right?
Dude, washed out. So I spent a bunch of time kind of managing and doing things, and I redid the walkway, brought in all this crushed, decomposed granite, paved it. It looked great, and all of a sudden, one rainstorm, and it's completely washed out. And so now my next thing is I got to send it to 3 different people I know and be like, how do I prevent this other than building a curb?
You need an engineer of some kind. I'm not sure, a geological engineer, storm sewer engineer.
Well, so the hard part about our property is we live downhill from all those horses. So my neighbor has 12 acres and she's got 60 plus horses, maybe closer to 80, for her horse school.
They're up here.
And they're all uphill, and they basically eat every single blade of grass. I mean, they literally pick that, like her place looks like the moon. Yeah. So the minute the water hits it, it flows. And then our house and this property is between her property and the creek. Yep. And then everything flows downhill. So trying to manage the water flow has been really interesting.
Yep. Yeah.
And just when I think I'm, the other thing I was telling Jacob, like I've been pretty good on like managing all the weeds and the whole thing. Everything was clean. All of a sudden they come out and like things had grown 6 inches and popped up in places they weren't.
Yeah,
I'm like, this wasn't here yesterday.
Dude, this place looks gnarly to take care of. Like I would be a full-time job for like 3 people to keep this place like tidy or something.
Well, first of all, Texas is a huge weed. Like the entire place is a weed. And then when you have 60 horses that do nothing but shit and piss all day, then when it rains, we have this like God's, fertilizer flowing downhill, and then the property just goes and explodes.
Yeah.
Like we leave or there's a big rain and things grow 3 feet.
Yeah, when you think of Texas in the movies and stuff, you're thinking of these westerns and things like that. That's nothing like what I'm seeing here. It's like a jungle here.
Yeah. Well, this is they call it Texas Hill Country, and I think the reason that people from California come here and it feels familiar is because it's like a Central California kind of that Mendocino, that kind of area. It feels very similar, other than the fact that like the heat and the weather is like it's spiteful. It's like angry. It's like egregious and like pissed off.
Very fucking humid, I'll tell you that. Yeah. Vancouver is like 75 degrees every day in the summer and like no humidity.
It's like California.
Like zero. Yeah. It's like California, but a little cooler. Yeah. So just one question about the hill country. So we have some people we're working with that are outside hill country, outside San Antonio. So is this like this go all the way west, like down to San Antonio kind of thing?
Yeah. So where they like in Bernie in that area?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's still considered like Texas Hill Country.
Yeah.
So there's an area that's called Cibolo.
Cibolo.
Yeah, that's a Comanche word for buffalo.
Okay.
So there's dude, I'm like, I think the coolest animal on the planet is the American bison. Just like every story I've ever read and like seeing, and then also, obviously our mutual friend Rob Wolf, all the, regenerative agriculture and understanding how impactful the American bison was for making America as feudal as it was. I mean, you talk about, anywhere from 45 to 50 million head of buffalo roaming around this country in like a big drove, doing what these horses do.
Yeah.
And
like till everything up so the fertilizer can get in.
And like, there's all these ground nesting birds that, this, and they, pick all through it. And that's why America has been so fertile for so long.
Yeah.
So I've always been fascinated by the buffalo. And then there's also a huge buffalo jump.
We have one in Alberta, a place where I used to.
So my mom's from Lethbridge.
In Buffalo. Well, Audrey, my wife, grew up in Lethbridge.
Oh yeah, so my mom was born in Medicine Hat.
Fuck fitness. We'll just
we'll talk about
we'll just see where this goes.
So my mom grew up in was born in Medicine Hat and lived in Lethbridge, and just west of Lethbridge is that smashed in head buffalo jump.
Yeah, that's a wicked thing to see.
Yeah, so we went out there as we were kids. And, we used to fly into like Missoula and go to like Whitefish. And then we would drive up and go through Lethbridge and then end up at the Calgary Stampede kind of deal.
Yeah, the Stampede's better.
But we went up to that buffalo jump. So like there's a buffalo jump down here. So like the fact that like the American Indians or, the natives, whatever you want to call them, they hunted the buffalo from, Western Canada all the way down here to Texas.
Found places to run them off of steep cliffs.
And they all did the same thing. They just ran them off big steep cliffs. And, the hilarious part was they drive like, let's say 5,000 and they could only get the ones at the top. So over time, they have all of these bones. So they've been able to go down and figure out that they were hunting buffalo like this for tens of thousands of years.
Right.
So pretty amazing. But yeah, that area in Bernie's beautiful. And when we moved out here, we drove down there and it was kind of rural, and like you could tell that like it was one of those places that hadn't necessarily like caught on fire, but now it's like it's out of control. We interrupt this episode with a shameless self-promotion. Power Athlete delivers battle-tested performance programming for every kind of athlete. So do you want to go from average Joe to MVP? Then dominate with Field Strong. Get stacked and jacked with Jack Street. Hustle in life and still build muscle with Grindstone. Fear no opponent with Dragon Slayer. Be harder than coffin nails with Hammer. Max out minimal equipment with Lean Enable. Or unlock those newbie gains with Bedrock. Get over to powerathletehq.com/training and choose your 7-day free trial right here, right now. Get lifting, get training, get in shape, all while listening to the rest of this show.
Yeah, I think people generally are just getting sick of the city. I think COVID kind of did that. I have a house that's in the shadows of the downtown, which kind of looks a bit like Austin here still. So it's completely overpriced and out of control. But anyway, you mentioned Rob Wolf. I have to shout out to Robbie for setting this up. I was sitting here thinking, I'm driving over with Audrey, so I can't wait to see John. I was trying to think about When's the last time we saw each other in person? Because you had text come up to a thing we did in Atlanta. Like that was 2018, I think.
Yeah.
And I can't quite remember the last time we hung out.
I want to say, was it like a CrossFit affiliate gathering? Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Many years ago.
There was one in Austin.
Yeah.
Like in 2008 that I spoke at. Would it have been that long?
Yeah.
Wow. I feel like we've kept kind of in touch here and there and reached out and this and that. And I've been watching what you've been doing. And so our coaches love what you're doing. And we've gone a little more away from performance stuff, but then they say, well, take a look what John's doing here, and they'll bring us back. And anyway, Tom, my head coach or whatever, he wanted to give you a shout out and say, hey,
thank you.
Hey, they love the power athlete stuff.
Yeah, it's a simple model, right? Like athleticism, moving through space. I mean, the idea of fostering, developing athleticism and making people better versions of themselves through movement. And then challenging that movement with barbells and change of direction at different planes of motion. And really, I have to credit Greg Glassman for this. He'll probably fucking, drink himself sick or throw out the thing when he hears it. But, when he approached me about working with CrossFit, he asked me about helping them develop their technology and how to train athletes. And when he asked me if I thought CrossFit was an athletic form of training, I said no. Bilateral hip hinging in a sagittal plane is not athleticism. You got to be able to move, frontal, sagittal, transverse,
right.
And you got to be able to move in different planes of motion, step, squat, and lunge. And you got to be able to move through space. And so like looking at their model and then him asking me to develop my own model of training really allowed me to what are they not doing well? What do I need? And how do I make this thing complete? And how do I make a blueprint that I can lay on top of any form of training to know if it's an athletic style of training?
Well, I think they like your simplicity too. I was just I rarely ever go on Instagram because I don't know. I just don't understand why people go on social media. But Tom sent me something. He said, well, take a look at what John's saying here. And it was like simple. And hybridizing and picking all these different people and trying to do your own thing. It's at the end of the day, it's pretty simple. Right. And I think that's sort of the message of what, has made us laugh. We've still got a gym 20 years later. You know what I mean?
Well, I think what happens is people that are not as competent create too much complexity as a way to give themselves a job. Like if I'm the only one that has the knowledge and I'm the gatekeeper, then you have to come to me for it. And the greater I can create that illusion and the better I can about making you feel dumb for asking.
Yes.
Then it's basically job security.
Yeah.
Opposed from teaching people to the simplicity of it. And, to go back another tip to Greg, he created something that he felt was very simple. I just don't know if it stood the test of time and it didn't evolve when it needed to.
Well, that brings up a really good point. So you never know where these things are going to go. So I said, I'm just going to follow John and see where this conversation goes. So that brings up a real interesting point is that it didn't evolve, right? And that they kind of ossified the thing in time when they created that level 1 cert. And then they, the model for the business, which is the side I'm in, like how does that gym run its business?
But they never threw a stake in the ground on that. And how can you say, hey, here's this training thing, you should open a gym and train your people and not give people any guidance on how to effectively run a business? This episode of Power Athlete Radio is powered by Train Heroic, the most immersive strength training app experience on the market. We've built an online training business by partnering with Train Heroic to deliver all of our world-class training programs like Jack Street, Hammer, Field Strong, and Grindstone. To learn which Power Athlete training program best suits your goals, head to powerathletehq.com/training. And if you're a coach looking to build a business with the best training tech in the business, head to trainheroic.com/powerathletehq. And now back to the show.
Well, the thing was they didn't know how. And if you look at I only came to this conclusion in the last very little while. And let me kind of evolve this thing. So the beauty of people, there's way more independent gyms than there are CrossFit affiliates now. And the number I get is a fucking astounding number of CrossFit affiliates that have gone into business or changed hands and that's from the insurance people. Right?
What is that number, if you don't mind me asking?
150,000 of them.
150.
That's the number I've gotten. I've gone back and asked them, no way. And then I've asked another company, what do you think about this? And they go like, yeah. And then I get like triple confirmation from I don't want to describe all the different levels of going through this, but it fascinated me.
So 150,000 gyms have gone out of business or changed hands?
Yes, and people underwrite a new policy, right? So that they know better than anybody, And so I'm like, holy fucking mackerel. And
so I spoke, I did not a podcast, but I just did a conference call. I spoke to Don Fall, who's the new CEO, the other day. We just connected. I reached out to him. We're doing some stuff with the guys at GoRuck. So Jimmy Letchford, who's CEO of GoRuck. So Jimmy's a Brazilian.
Jimmy Letchford, that's where he's at now, Jimmy?
Yeah.
Wow.
He's CEO for GoRuck. And GoRuck stuff is fucking bomb-proof. Like, I'm such a fan. They sent me sandbags. They sent me a backpack. Like, I don't know if I'll ever buy another backpack. Yeah, to the point where I had a few changes. He's like, send it back. We'll stitch it up. We'll make the straps a little longer. But he sent me sandbags, and I sent them out to our coaches and our athletes and people. And I'm like, I want you to break these things, like do different loading. Like I told Jimmy, I'm like, I don't know if the business model makes any sense because the shit is so overbuilt that I don't know if people need to buy extra. Well, and he's like, I want to make a great product. And I was like, you know what? Fucking good on you for it. But he, obviously they're working with CrossFit, and he was talking about, Don Fall is a Marine as well as he is. So he connected me, and we got on a talk for about 30 minutes. But the number he said they have 13,000 affiliates is the number he threw out. I didn't know if that was an accurate number, but he didn't seem like a type of dude to bullshit.
That's what's left, I guess. I have a hard time believing there's that many left. The number I see in the U.S. is much substantially less than that. It's more, I mean, around the world, I guess. Globally. So. Yeah, I predict there's less than 3,000 in the U.S. from the numbers that I can draw. But I mean, the point I was trying to make is the one thing that Greg did get right, and he got a lot of things right. It's amazing what we created and how that blew up. And
well, I mean, you were there in the infancy.
Yeah, that was the number 5th CrossFit in the world, and it went. There's so many. You could do a million different podcasts on how it went wrong, but I mean, one thing that he got right was to allow people to figure out any way to do it, which still stands, right? So if I can just give me a little bit of latitude here, like you owned the gym, and if I had to ask you, what was the fucking pain points of the gym? Like, what were the worst parts of the gym? And I can pretty much track that back to how it was. I always
wanted a gym. I just didn't want members.
Clients, yeah.
Right? Like, I always wanted a gym where I could come and train with my friends, and I wanted nice equipment. I wanted to keep it clean. I wanted to not have people fuck my shit up. I didn't want to deal with entitled people that, hey, I'm going away for a week. Can you cancel my membership for 1 week? Like, type of shit like that, where you're just like, in what universe does this even make fucking sense?
Yeah.
And so I think the people, breaking things and not coming and telling me, people just fucking shit up, like just general shitty behavior by members, like with credit cards and this, and just like the drama and like the weird entitlement that people came with paying you a nominal fee for your time is not what I liked. So I always wanted a gym. So I built exactly what I wanted. I have a gym on my property full of really nice equipment. Mm-hmm. I work with, or I train with my friends and other professional athletes that show up to train, are welcome to come. They know that I'm not cleaning up after them. They need to put their shit away. Everybody takes care of it. If I call you, you got to come clean. If I buy new equipment, I'm happy because it doesn't get destroyed. My wife gets to use it when she wants to with her friends. No, I don't take any money. The people that come and train, it's by invite only, and there's no money changing hands. Cool. Now, we want to go out to dinner. You want to buy some stuff. Like if you want to buy equipment, you want to do something.
Some good bottles of scotch over here. Right?
Yeah, so people bring gifts. So right now I got an NFL kid in town. He showed up for a couple weeks. He's going into his contract year. Just needed to clean up his technique and work on a few things. Cool. And so he's here for a couple weeks, and he works into our training groups because I train 2 of the top Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighters in the world, Victor Hugo and Felipe Costa, who are actually fighting tonight here in Austin, and then getting ready for the ADCC and the CGI deal. And
exciting.
Yeah, so I work with those guys, and one of the trades that I do with them is they train my kids, and I train with them, and but I found that when I start exchanging money for my time, there's a weird sense of entitlement that I don't want to do, because then it feels like a fucking job.
Yeah, that
was my problem.
The love and respect kind of goes out the road. It's free. Like a gift culture is really good. Free is not good.
No,
you know what I mean?
Because people don't value free shit.
That's right. Yeah.
So if you give somebody something for free, they don't value it, and the minute they don't value it, they got to go.
we used to throw parties where I gave like 300, 500 person parties. I was pretty famous for my
Well, dude,
parties.
didn't you build a bar in your gym?
Oh, yeah.
I remember last time I talked to you, you built some epic fucking bar up there.
Like a $30,000 bar.
Just expense that.
If I had to put that in the housing market in 2009, yeah. Anyway, and I gave it away for free. And man, I had to hire bussers, and then I had to hire security, and I was like, what the fuck, you know? So then I went to the Masters in 2010 with Dan McDougall.
Yeah.
Again, I helped him with his gym, and he took me to the Masters. That was kind of the friend trade. And you know, I don't know if you've been to the Masters.
Oh, golf tournament?
Yeah.
No.
So you line up. Like, I didn't know anybody had ever been there. You line up for, I told him he had the tickets, and I said I'd buy all the food and booze and whatever, right? So you line up, and I'm like, he starts picking out like 2 sandwiches, 2 beer, fucking like peanuts, chips, and I'm like doing the same. And we got 4 beer, which are like 2 exports and 2 domestic,
yeah.
And like 4 chicken breast sandwiches, 2 pimento and cheese chips. I'm like, dude, this is going to be like $500 or something here. The bill came out to $16.50. I was like, what the fuck is this? You know, I was like, I love them so much in that moment. And you will not find a scrap of garbage on that anywhere, because your people are dying to find the garbage can to put any, like, they treat you so well and it's so respectful. You know, it was $1 for a sandwich and $2.50 for a beer.
Yeah.
And like a 20-ounce beer. Right.
Yeah.
And the glasses are so good that I still use them at home.
Nice.
And they've been probably through 1,000 washes. You
Nice.
know what I mean? Anyway, so I started doing that at the gym, $1 a beer for a party. And you know what? I didn't need security, and I didn't need bussers or any of that stuff. Like, people just took care of the place like it was their own. That one change, it was interesting.
Yeah. So when I, sold my gym, like one of the younger trainers wanted to buy it, and I was either going to shut it down. And, but in Newport Beach, where we were at, the value in that gym was that I ended up going through the process to actually get a conditional use permit for a gym. Most people were just gorilla in there. I went through the process with the city, and it ended up costing me about $40,000-$50,000 to do the study and go through everything. Yep. So that, like, once that gym is established as a gym, it can always be a gym.
Yep.
So that now he ended up getting bought out by some influencer gym. That the guy parks his Lambos in there, and they bring in hot chicks and stuff.
Yeah.
But I always wanted a gym for my friends. I did not want to have members. So that's kind of how it evolved. But it was also a great place because it allowed us to, figure out the technology and what we were trying to do for Power Athlete.
Yeah.
So when I ended up selling the gym, we moved out here to Austin, and we went really full, and at the time we were doing a bunch of military contracting, trying to implement Power Athlete with the 18th Airborne Corps, which was like 90,000 U.S. troops. And then we were doing, we still do a bunch of stuff with Naval Special Warfare. So really just going in that direction has been excellent. It's allowed me to do exactly what I want, which is have a place to train and have professional athletes and other high value people come and train with me and work with those people, which I think they value it in that one-on-one situation. But in terms of owning a gym, I don't think I'd ever own a gym again.
Well, you look happy and more jacked than I do. I'm 20 years in. It was like, there were some hard times. No doubt about that. I can say one thing. I love the people, and that behavior you talk about. It's all how the gym is set up that I don't ever see that stuff anymore. I haven't dealt with any of that stuff in, I don't know, probably 15 years. You end up dealing with the coaches stuff and on down the line. So what we did, like I started just personal. I was an engineer, and I had a green building design engineer. I was one of the first lead engineers in the world. I was making a ton of money doing good things. And I got a forced over takeout from one of my best friends. Long story, but he controlled the money, and then I just wasn't getting paid, and I had to go to court and all that shit, right? So I was I had a settlement, like enough that I didn't have to worry about money for a little while, and that's when I ran into Greg, and I started just personally training people.
How'd you meet Greg?
I had a friend said, you got to come down and see this shit. This dude can talk like a motherfucker. He gave me a few of the workouts, and I'd been at a desk working my ass off for 4 or 5 years, right? And I started doing these workouts for about 3 weeks, and I was like, wow, things lit up in 3 weeks, maybe a month even. That was in 2004. I was 20 years ago, bro. August, yeah. Anyway, I went down to a charity event, met him at this charity event. We just started talking. He didn't know who I was. I didn't nearly know who he was. I read What is Fitness.
Yeah.
And he was living in a one bedroom, that rented house in Santa Cruz, the 1 bedroom house.
Yeah.
And he was broke. And, but he was brilliant how he could talk. We sat down and talked for 7 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. Went to lunch and then went for dinner, I think, that day. Just talk. And he somehow, how he could talk. He convinced me to possibly open a gym,
Greg might be one of the most charismatic people I've ever met, and his ability to talk. I mean, especially in big groups.
Yeah.
Like I know, like one-on-one, he's a smart dude, but you put him in front of 50, 100, a couple hundred people, and I've never seen anybody light up like that.
One-on-one, he was a lovely dude. Like I fell in love with the guy. Like he would stay in the bedroom and I'd sleep on the couch kind of thing back in the day. And I got really close to him. And I'll always love him. How things went. I couldn't work for him, and I couldn't get closer to it. So I went my own way, and there was all that stuff. But there was something beautiful about him, one-on-one, and then brilliantly, it was the charisma was unbelievable. Anyway, I just started working out, and then friends of mine are like, "Fuck, man, you're getting jacked." And then I started slowly training people without any knowledge, and then. I see you looking. Am I okay with the mics? We're good?
Yeah. No, everything's great. I just make sure I kind of glance at the thing to make sure that nothing's fucking falling or anything's weird. So as I'm talking, I kind of glance at this to make sure nothing's weird. And also this is my other one. I'm like, because I watch the podcast and sometimes I'll be over there like, so just make sure I don't make funny faces or look like a fucking idiot.
I'm trying to figure out.
No, I'm talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So anyway, it kind of came about more by accident. I was actually gearing up to go back and start another engineering firm and do it to go back and crush my buddy. Basically, it was a revenge plot, and I just never went back. It slowly. I just started training people, and then before long, I was like, I got thrown out of the. I was training at a park. Started to rain. Then you were at the community center, and you get thrown out of there, and then finally thrown out everywhere until finally I found this little personal training studio that the guy had no rent. He didn't give a shit. And he was inside of a tech building. And he let me kind of do my thing. And he charged me $5 a client. So I started just personally training people. Then I eventually put them into a little group class. And, within 6 months, I went from my first client that paid me it was $5 just to pay for the thing. And then it became 10 and I got 5. And then I raised my rate from 10 to 20. I lost half my clients.
Of course.
So it's like, some of them I didn't miss. It's like, I think I got the wrong fucking people here, or I don't know what I'm doing whatsoever.
Sure.
So I developed this thing called the exit interview. I did this personal training course, personal development course. And it's the scariest thing. And it's still part of our coach development, which is anybody who leaves you. This would be a hell of a thing to go back and ask ex-girlfriends, by the way. You go back and you say, hey, I want to learn how I can get better. This is not to bring you back. And I would thank you very much. I'll take you for dinner for it, or coffee, drinks, whatever. And I could get everybody there except for one guy. So I did 55 of these in probably a year. You sit down with them and say, okay, how did I fail you? Let them talk. What does everybody know about Craig Patterson that he doesn't even know himself? Or what does everybody know about Craig? You know what I mean? Like, that thing, that blind spot you have where everybody's laughing about you behind your back. You hear all kinds of stuff. And then it'd be like, okay, how could I improve? Where could I get better? And it's a hell of the first one you do is the scariest thing I've ever done, I think. And I had already done it with my friends before that. So that prepared me for this. But it gave me everything I needed on how to create a great gym or how to actually be a great trainer. So then I opened a gym. And everything went fucking sideways, exactly like you're talking about, straight into a group class, sign up anywhere, free day, free, all this stuff. And everything went to hell. I had 2 partners. We went $73,000 in debt in 6 months. Whereas before I was personally training, I had 30 clients. I was making about $8,500 a month. No one was going anywhere. I'd already done all those interviews with everybody. I knew what I was doing. I was a year in. And then I opened a commercial model, and Greg was like, hey, you got to put them right in a group class and pay pretty young things to come do our level 1 cert and let them just run a class, right? And it'll be workout of the day. And I'm just like, man, that thing went sideways so fast that it made no fucking sense. And, clients were leaving and coming. Coaches were setting up shop over here and doing whatever they wanted. The place was a mess. It was just like the awfulest thing I could ever have got myself into. And I sat down with my two partners who I was doing all the work. They were just basically showing up to coach a group class or two, right?
Sure.
We looked around and we had 100 and some people had come through that place in one form or the other, or didn't sign up or quit. I had my 30 clients that I personally trained, none of them left, And I'm like, we're $73,000 in debt. I go, guys, I'm just going to go set up shop over here with my 30 guys and grow from there. Or you can pay part of that debt. I'll take over whatever's good and we'll split the bad debt 3 ways. And they agreed to that. My sister co-signed a $40,000 loan. And then I fired everybody and I started over completely from scratch. And the number one thing, the greatest thing, is everybody has to do a one-on-one consult and a minimum of 10 personal training sessions and pay for it up front, right? Now the smarter kids have come along and it's three-day assessments, right? Easier to sell. Maybe they don't want to work with the person after 3 days. Like, we pretty much have a waiting list at our gym, 1.3 million a year with no marketing, right? So, and 3 of those coaches have been there for 18 years.
Wow.
Yeah. They're all making 80 to 120,000 a year, 5 weeks paid vacation, all that stuff, right? So, I backtrack to like, why are we doing it this way? When I fired everybody and started over, I'm like, why are we doing it this way? I'm telling you, John, it took me until about 5 years ago to really tap in. I was in London speaking at a conference, and a guy pulled me aside. He's like, I want to use your system. I've been following you for a while, and I want to use your model, and I want to use your coach development for a new franchise. Excuse me. So I was like, okay, sounds like a good opportunity for me.
Right? Yeah, sure.
So he pulls me into this boardroom with these guys, and all they do is set up franchises, right? And they got one guy who's like the hedge fund manager or the whatever the hell he is. Like he's the money guy. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, how do you want to do this? And they were like, well, you got to put people straight into group classes, all the old stuff, like that exact same thing that I already knew failed 15 years before, right?
We have a similar story. When I first opened my gym, I was living in this big industrial loft, and the downstairs was the gym where I used to train with my brothers. So when we kind of converted it into a gym, I ended up with a bunch of personal clients, and people were coming in one-on-ones, and we were making like between $6,000 and $8,000 a month. Yeah. It was right downstairs. It was easy. The overhead was, I was paying the loft. I mean, it was perfect. Yeah. And all of a sudden, one of the neighbors who worked from home, who was just a massive douchebag, didn't like the fact that he saw people coming and going in an industrial commercial setting. And because he sat in he had a little like t-shirt studio thing, and he sat there, and for some reason, and the guy, was allegedly, a friend of ours and whatnot. And he didn't like to see the cars pulling up and people coming in. And, he's like, I don't want to see this outside my window. So he starts complaining to the city that he's running a health club and he's not licensed in this. And so the city comes in, I get all the permitting done. And the guy just like every day kept calling the police to the point where these people are like, I don't want to show up here anymore. And I'm like, well, tell this motherfucker to stop calling. And at that point, I went up and I rented a bigger space. And then we ran a gym, and then we started doing group classes. And all of a sudden, I never made another fucking dollar.
You don't make any. As soon as you open that group class, dude, all hope is fucking lost.
We ended up with a 5,000 square foot gym, and I was running all these group classes, and I was having trainers like, you're going to love this one.
Dude, I didn't know you actually started off the same way I did that way.
And one of the coaches, the guys that was working for me teaching classes, all of a sudden on like a Sunday, I realized I had left something at the office. So I show up at like 2:00 on a Sunday, and he's running a fucking boot camp in there, unbeknownst to me, with like 80 fucking people. Because, we would come in on Saturdays and train, and then Sunday morning.
Just right for it. Right?
It was Sunday. We were just like, the gym was closed. He's like, I'm going to run a fucking boot camp. So like there's streamers outside and people, and I walk in and I see him. I'm like, what the fuck? And he's like, I'm like, dude, you're fired. Get these fucking people out of here. And so
I'm glad you did it that quick. I had similar, and it took me like months.
I was like, dude, this guy's you're fucking stealing from me. Yeah. And then
you're killing my brand, and you know what I mean.
And then I had one of my trainers, like for example, lady gives a credit card. He runs it, comes, says it doesn't work, write me a check. She writes it to the gym. He crosses the check out, does my initial and writes his name.
Oh, God.
And then all of a sudden this lady's coming in and one of the coaches is like, hey, I'm not getting paid on my client. I'm like, well, she's never paid. He's like, I saw her write the check. And then I hit her up. She sends me the check and I basically X'd the gym name out and there was a different name of a dude. I mean, like, it's like the most cowboy shit that you couldn't even, things were happening.
That deserves a good beating.
I couldn't wrap my head around because I'm not a nefarious person, but like shit where I'm like, how'd this person even think this? Like, I didn't even know you could fucking do that. Dude, so at that point I realized, then we cut up and then another neighbor, same deal. He had like an import-export business of like German knickknacks. And his warehouse staff used to stand outside and smoke cigarettes. And we had like a back area where it was parking. We used to push prowlers. They said that it was making them feel bad about themselves to see people working out. So then he was complaining to management. I had to have this big fucking meeting, and like the guy who was like owned all the properties in the area was there. And he's like, hey, I have another building on the other side. Like, just fucking move there. Like, I won't charge you any extra or whatever. So we ended up moving a third time, and that was the gym that I ended up finally selling. But I always remember like, fuck, this thing was great when it was a few clients a day. Yeah. People were paying it. They were getting a boutique experience. And, the gym was great and it was in a good location. Every time we went to something bigger and tried to do this group model and all this other shit, it literally imploded and was shit.
It just turns into shit bags. I think you could take Sister Teresa and put her in a group class setting and she turns into a thief or something. You know what I mean? Like, I just can't. Human beings just turn into fucking savages. And we do group classes, but only after like a very long process and the way the coaches are paid and how everything works. It's been 20 years, John, and it's still evolving. And if I go back to, the one thing that CrossFit got right, where you look at all these other group class franchises, is he said you could run it your own way, right? So like my plea to people now, like you've given me idea. I've always wanted to do, and I have something for a podcast that I enjoy doing, and I tried doing them, and it turned into this business jargon nonsense, and I hated them. Gym drama, stories from the crypt or something.
Needs to be like a Netflix show.
Oh, dude, I had one woman. Remember when CrossFit was like, man, it's free market, and Greg was like, this big argument with the free market.
Put people right next door to each other, and they'll wave at each other when they're running 400.
So she decided that it was the free market. She was allowed to train people for free in my gym.
I had that.
Right.
I'm
going to set up shop in your gym, pay no rent, and take your clients and train them and make money for myself.
One of my trainers. Right. So the trainers could do one-on-ones, like privates. Or they could do group classes, right? So like either have one-on-one clients or group classes, nothing in between. Well, all of a sudden she ended up with like 4 or 5 one-on-one clients. And then she just started booking them all at the same time and then training them in her own group.
Yeah, nice.
And I was like, finally, and then she reduced their rates. And I like told her, I was like, you're running a CrossFit gym inside of a CrossFit gym. Yeah. And she couldn't see it. And I was like, here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to take all your clients. I'm going to put them into classes and then I'm going to pay you. And she's like, but I'm losing money. And I'm like, well, then go open your own fucking gym. Yeah. So like dealing with people, dealing with employees is never easy. Dealing with the clients and like, and you think a very well-to-do Newport Beach area would, not be immune to this.
Yeah, they should be fine. Right?
I would have people come in and be like, hey, school's done. We're going to Aspen to stay at our summer home. I need to cancel my membership for like 3 weeks. Yeah. And I'm like, we don't have cancels or holds or any of this other shit. And I'm like, do you want a gym when you come back? Of course, I'm going to come back here and chain. I'm like, how do you think this place keeps the lights on when all of a sudden you want to fucking freeze your membership for a week and nickel and dime me off of like $180, which was like $60. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, you're pulling up in a $100,000 Porsche, and you're fucking fighting me for $60, and you want a gym when it turns. It just was a weird environment.
You know what our answer to that one was? Well, that one has evolved, but that's everyone faces this. Why don't you call it the cable company, your cell phone company, and everybody else, and say you want to put it on hold for 3 weeks and see what they tell you.
Yeah, right? or your mortgage. Hey, I'm not going to be living in that house. Let me say it was the other one, which was wild, is that people I realized in the adult fitness industry, people are more willing to spend money on their kids than themselves. People will spend money on their pets before they spend money on themselves. So like I had a lady, it was like, hey, I can't afford 180 because my daughter it costs $300 a month for my daughter to go to gymnastics 1 day a week. So she's paying $300 for 4 sessions a month for her daughter to go to gymnastics. And she's like, they're upping the rate. So I can't train anymore. And I was like, okay, so you're willing to spend a ton of money, even though you can come here every single day for $180. Yeah. You're going to cancel your membership so your daughter can go to gymnastics 4 days a week, which I get it as a parent, but it kind of blew my mind.
You deal with all of it. I mean, it's unbelievable. So the solution that we came up with after I fired everybody, I'm back here dealing with all that shit. And you got to be like, okay, what am I going to do moving forward? And I had a buddy of mine that I'd been in engineering with. He still works for me today, T-Bear. You've met T-Bear, I think. And we sat down and it was like, we were both engineers, and we said, okay, we're going to make this like a class project. And we got like the board out and duotang folders, and, we had like writing everywhere. And it was like, the Hippocratic Oath or whatever. It was like, this thing's got to work for the clients, every decision we make, because, bring a friend day is probably not that good for the client or the coach or the gym.
Sure.
And then it's got to be good for the coach. The decisions you make, the coach has got to win.
Sure.
And then at the end of the day, the business has to win or the whole thing fails. And then we were like, okay, how are we going to measure this? So we started off with, like, for the clients, with all these physical measurements and like 1 mile runs and like those psychological studies and see if they did better. And it was like, we even had SFU professors in there, and it was, dude, none of it made any sense. I was like, how about they just never leave and they pay you a lot of money?
Seems like a good plan.
How about this? That one work?
Yeah.
Right. And it's pretty much for any business. If you want your clients don't ever leave and they pay you a lot of money, something fucking good's going to happen after that. Sure. So that is called average client value and client retention, right? Which the whole industry goes crazy about now. But back then it was like, why are we doing this shit? Right. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, that's what the client wins if he spend lots of money, he never lose. So the coach, and that probably does well for the coach in the business owner. How does the coach win? T-Bear's like, I got to make $100,000. There's no way I can live in the city. I was like, okay, well, total coach pay. That's measurement number 3. And then we started working 50-hour weeks to get them the money he needed. He go, well, that's not going to work. So then it's $1 per coach hour, plus lifestyle and, paid vacation. Like that was kind of $1 per coach hour kind of fit in there. Mm-hmm. And then it was like, then all of a sudden they were making 70%. I'm making 30. And I'm like, the business is going to go bankrupt if I'm not a coach. You know what I mean? I'm only making money from the coach, right back to the same problem. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, the business needs to make money. What's that? Okay. EBITDA, profit, right? So that's another measurement that all these things have to be in balance. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, what am I doing all this for? I could just be a personal trainer here now. So it's like, okay, what's the business going to be worth? So if you're not like, if you look at those 13,000 CrossFit gyms, you're talking about the guys that's out there, they all add up to probably nothing. You couldn't give them to me, most of them, right?
I wonder how many of those are actually well-run gyms. I mean, you would know because you're kind of on this other side of it where, I feel like people like, I heard a great analogy once about business. There's like from like 0 to, let's say, about $3 million, you're in this kind of like settler or a pioneer deal where you show up and you got to build a fire, you got to fight the Indians, you got to like battle it, and you do this. And then as you kind of get over past that, let's say, past that 1 to 3 million, then you get into something like a settler where you put up walls, you start defending your deal, and you do on. And then the next piece is probably the town planner, where you bring somebody in who actually knows what the fuck they're doing. Yeah. So I feel like most of the CrossFit gyms start in this like 0 to, let's say, $1 million. And they're in that, like once they hit $1 million, I think it's unscalable. Because the systems that they have, they've just, used how many people can I jam in the front door of this place? How many classes can I run? How do I do this? Yep. And, we saw it, and basically what kind of, I believe, killed the entire culture for us in Orange County, especially where my gym was we had a guy that was running these Groupons. Yep. And people were buying the Groupons, and it was like, 1 month for $1 or whatever it is. And he brings people in. And then we had these people that were CrossFitters that were just buying the Groupons. Yep. So all of a sudden we get somebody come to us and they were like, hey, we want to run this Groupon thing. And I'm like, I won't fucking do it. And so one of the guys that was like, we got to do it. I'm like, all right, we'll run one as a test. So we sell it. We get all these people in the door. At the end of the month, they all left and went to a different CrossFit gym. Mm-hmm. So in a sense, we got a little bit of pay, but all it does is destroy your gym culture. That's right. The people that are making, like your actual nut that are paying you every month, they're like, these fucking assholes are here for $1 and they're going to fuck this gym up and they're going to leave it a month. And then they all left.
Destroys you.
Yeah. And so this guy, I can't remember his last name. His name was Justin. He completely, not only did he fuck the culture by doing all these Groupons, but he pissed the coaches off so much that worked for him that they all went and opened their own CrossFit gyms with the intent to fucking kill him.
Southern California ate its other. It ate its young. It destroyed itself. Like we used to have a few gyms there, and then we saw what happened to everybody around. If you had that brand, like the same thing happened to everywhere. It happened to us too. Like we were the only guy in town for like 7 years, right? Maybe actually there was another girl that used to work for me that kind of did her own little thing. She was fine. But then like when the big thing hit in 2010 or 11, some guy like, our thing was you had to do 10 personal training sessions. That's going to, back then it was, $800. And then, before you go into group and all this kind of stuff. And, did the same thing, $19.99 for 8 sessions. And then, what happened with us, we got called like they all thought they were coming to my gym. We had 300 and some, he sold 472 of them in 8 hours. We got at least 250 calls, right? Because people thought it was us, and they Googled it, CrossFit.ca, and they bought it. And then they would get mad at us, and we're like, dude, I'm not training anybody for $2 an hour. And then finally no one would pick up the phone, and we left a message. We're not the discount CrossFit, and, go over there. And then just beat it. And then all my coaches came and said, okay, we need a new brand now. We can't protect our brand. Like, how are you going to, and I sat down and talked to Greg. I go, dude, how can I protect my brand? I pioneered this place for 6 years, right? And made it so that the coaches, every one of my coaches was,
what year was this?
This was 2009 or 10.
Yeah.
So I started in 2004. And I'm like, man, I can't protect my brand now. And, we can't differentiate. Like now it's just a workout that anybody can run. It's a commodity. Like, dude, I thought we were going to change the coaching world. For me, it was all about the coaches.
Yeah.
And I worked in this system as a coach for a decade.
Yeah.
So, it was like, I felt the total betrayal. And it was like, as a business person, you had no choice but to get out of that brand, because now you are the cheap discount $2 trainer.
Yeah.
And that's it. And the whole market did that.
Yeah.
And I wrote an article, and I got the trolls put on me, and CrossFit HQ went nuts, and everybody went bananas. And I was like, can't you see all they worried was about growth, because it grew more and more and more gyms.
Well,
right.
Which was selling more level ones.
Yeah.
Which allowed Greg just to
That's how they made all the money.
Make more and more money. I remember it was when Greg pitched me. I don't know if I ever told this on the podcast, but when he pitched me the idea of doing CrossFit football, we were sitting in his garage, and he had a gun safe. Yeah. And I'm sitting there like, man, he's in Arizona. Like, fuck, this guy's probably got guns. I'm like, what kind of guns you got in there? It was stacked with gold bars.
Yeah.
He fucking opened that thing up, and it was like Willy Wonka opening the chocolate factory door.
Yeah.
I was like,
I've seen that one.
And I was like, and he's like, this is what this is about. And I realized it wasn't about, helping people, changing the world. It was about the gold fucking bars. Yeah,
gold
bars.
At first, it was so beautiful. It went gold bars, and every decision was made like with your hand right in front of your face. How much more money can we make this month or this year? And that leads me to like the whole market. They saw what he made, and then Greg saw Curves first. Curves did it before him.
Yeah,
you remember? I remember at one point it was like Curves. I'm like, holy fuck, what did we learn from Curves? Yeah. And like I said, like we're moving around a little bit, but 15 years later, I'm in London, sitting down at the table with these guys, and they're telling me their plan. I go, well, if you do that, you're going to lose 80% of your clients a year, right? You're going to churn at least 80% if you put them straight into a group class, and you have the TVs and the machines, and you have some coach that's got like a 3-day, course to invigilate the thing. You're going to lose 80% of your clients. Like, what's the shelf life of that? Some guy from the back room came in. They looked it over. I go, yeah, we lose about that, but doesn't matter.
Well, we jam enough people in the front side. It doesn't fucking matter.
And
they're not focused on retention. If they're in a VC, what they're looking to do is just build something up to the point where they can flip it to somebody bigger.
That is right.
Like you look at like Les Mills and some of that other stuff. So, it's, there's a definite model of being like in that, like let's build it, let's build the brand, and let's flip it out to somebody better.
Yeah. And they need to multiply. So, then I go next, I go, okay, well, the coach development, it's 18 months. It's 18 months of coursework and a practicum here for like 3 years. And they got to do all kinds of training and personal development training and business training. And they're like, dude, we don't have any time for that.
Yeah.
It's 2 days.
No time for your jibba jabba.
No time for that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and the guy in the back's like, hey, we got to get out of this thing within 5 years. We have to have a return on investment. before 5 years. And I'm like, holy mackerel. You know what I mean? Like, then it was like.
So in the BC world, it's 5 years.
5
right?
years.
So, I mean, CrossFit's in an interesting space in that they're coming up at like 4.5.
Yeah.
So there was, I don't know if you saw Saban and those guys put out a video that talked about, CrossFit's looking to sell, they're going to hemorrhage and this, and they're looking to dump it. And they put it out. I watched it. It was like, holy shit. So when I talked to Don Fall, that's what we discussed a little bit, like, what's the future of this thing? And he's like, we got to do better to strengthen our affiliates. We got to get more people in the door. We got to make better coaches, and we got to bring value back to the brand. The problem is too many Cowboys have not done a good job in being brand protectors. And, we're looking to kind of add more integrity back into the brand.
Yeah. Well, they have a business model that simply doesn't work because it was designed for fast growth, and it was designed for Greg to make $500 million, the same as Curves was. And then you look at F45 and Orange Theory, and they all have a bunch of things in common. And if you're at home and you own an independent gym, you're doing any one of these things, stop. Right? That's what I'm trying. My mission, John, now is to put it out into the world of what the long con is, right? The con is putting people straight into a group class. Like there's one marketing company now every 2 years. So there was Groupon, and there was a new U Challenge, and there was the Couch to CrossFit. And then it became, the most evil one, the Gym Launch. And now there's another one. There's another one. Isn't
that
Small Rumors or something?
Alex Hormesi?
Yeah. I mean, like, dude.
Yeah, Gym Launch.
Look at the dirtbaggery there, right? I mean, they can fill your gym.
He just came out and finally said that he's takes 75 milligrams of testosterone a month.
That's a lot.
Yeah. No, 75 milligrams. Usually it's like 200 milligrams a week is TRT.
Oh, I don't know.
So he came out and said he takes like 75 milligrams. It was either a week or month. I mean, but it was like, it reminded me of when Mark McGuire, when he's like, I'm not on steroids, I'm on this androstenedione, and he had it like in his locker. He's like, I'm not taking that, I'm taking this. It was a similar deal.
Yeah.
The same guy that put on 40 pounds of muscle from eating at Chipotle.
Yeah.
But if you slow play them on the extra guac, they'll give you extra. I mean, it's like, fuck, dude. That guy pumps out like 9 billion pieces of content a week. It's pretty amazing.
I mean, he does what he does, but I mean, he crushed the gym industry. I mean, and then there's another one doing it. And then what happens is they fill the gym up full of people by putting people straight into a group class, no consult, the coach compensations, something by the hour. Right. And maybe most of the bad ones don't even do personal training, but they'll give you a percentage of personal training.
Sure. So
the coaches have no hope. The clients are all going to leave. The marketing company makes all the money. And the whole industry goes down the same path again. But, we lay it out very clearly what not to do and very clearly what you should do. And after, looking at those 6 key performance indicators for 20 years and still evolving with it.
What are your 6 KPIs?
So the first one is that, clients never leave, pay a lot of money.
Clients never leave.
Pay a lot of money. Coaches, total coach pay, they need to make 1.25 times the average household income.
What is it? 1 point what?
1.25 times the average household income.
Times average household income.
And then dollar per coach hour needs to be much better than time and a half for a great tradesperson. Needs to be at least time and a half for a tradesperson.
Yeah.
Yeah. So dollar per coach hour. And then the gym needs to make profit. So EBITDA, we measure that at 20%. I think I take a smaller piece of the pie than those other gyms running full out, but mine's gonna last. I have a gym 20 years, like I said, 1.3 million with no advertising, no marketing, 0 marketing budget.
How many clients is that?
It's around 3. The summers are between 325 about. We don't really, I don't never say how many clients do we got. No, it's never the number.
I always kind of ask just because I'm curious to know on the space side.
Yeah, so it's 9,000 square feet.
So I was very fortunate to teach hundreds of seminars across the gyms around the globe, to the point where I could get off the plane, get in the car and start driving towards the area. And I felt like I could find the CrossFit gym just if you knew what to look for.
Right.
There's a Whole Foods. I see a big used tire out front,
Yeah.
And we would just always just go right to wherever it was.
Right.
And I got to the point where I could kind of figure out what I felt the perfect model was for a CrossFit gym. Had to be big enough that you could make people feel like they weren't crushed, but not so big that it wasn't easy to clean and keep well.
Yep.
So there was we went to one gym that was 18,000 square feet. We taught at some that were, 2,000 or 3,000.
Yeah.
There's somewhere in that, I think between 25 and 3, maybe 35, like the biggest of 4, like that's a pretty good model. And then you can end up with somewhere. And I'll tell you this, we were more profitable when I had 125, 150 clients than when I had 300.
That's what that's what our message to people are. We're getting to have half the amount of clients of when your gym was the fullest, and you know what I mean? Half the amount of clients and double the average client value. That's the mission.
So like a smaller, more efficient, very boutique.
I think
and clean
for most
gym.
people, 3,000 to 5,000 would be great. If I had to do it all over again, I'd probably just go 5 or 6. I mean, my space is underused, to be honest.
Yeah.
Our space becomes, how many coaches can you train? Like, my coaches don't leave. Yeah. So I don't do that anymore now. Tom trains coaches, and it takes 4 years. And they go from 0 to, like, Karan's our latest one. I write her a check for $8,000 every month now, right? And like I said, I got my 3 guys that have been there for 17, 18 years. I know Andy was 9,000 some. Sheppy was 85. T-Bear took like 3 weeks off. Still got like 6 or 5 or something, right? So they can take vacation. They can be lazy when they need to be. You can't. There's no way in this industry you can make it if you're getting paid by the hour or you're getting paid by a percentage. You can't. You take 1 month off, you're done. Yeah. You're finished. You know, you get sick for a week, you're fucking behind the 8 ball.
Well, I mean, right? We used to get people that would send us hate mail because they were like, what do you mean you're closing on Thanksgiving? What do you mean you're like, we'd close the week of Christmas, and people are like, well, what if I want, and it was this interesting idea where, hey, I'm going to leave for 3 weeks, but God damn it, if you ever close, it's like, we got an email the other day or yesterday from to our shop, and my assistant forwarded it to me. Some guy bought 2-day shipping, and the warehouse, our fulfillment didn't send it 2-day. And the dude just was like, I want to fucking beat everybody's fucking ass there. And I'll respond to the guy and been like, here's my address, swing on fucking by. Now I'm a pretty good fighter, but I got some of the baddest dudes on the planet fucking train at my gym every single day.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't want to run up against you.
Yeah. Well, my training partner, Matt, wrestled D1 at Cornell, and he's a fucking gorilla. I mean, people joke that like all the people we train are just fucking big gorillas. Yeah. So I'm like, swing by. You're mad about your fucking shirt being 2 days? Come on, dude. Yeah. Swing on by. We'll fucking
They're probably the nicest, most respectful people is what people don't understand if they never hung out with those kind of people, right?
Well, because like you don't have to be a fucking asshole all the time. Like you see this on the internet constantly where people are just so fucking rude. Yeah. And I realized
can't go on the internet at all. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I can't. My wife just showed me something from a CrossFit forum. I haven't been on one of those in years. And it was like one guy just probably was like, are you still doing the first free? How many people are doing a first free day or a week? And the guy's like, dude, if you're giving away a free week, shake your head. You need to learn how to sell. And then just everybody hated on him. Like, I tell you, if out there right now, anybody listening, if you're running a gym and you're giving away a free week, there is a much better way to do it. I can show you how to do it with this. Like I have a $97 product, personal training first. I think it should be worth $5,000. The marketing people are like, hey, make something really great to build trust. And
it's buyer psychology, right? Yeah. Like people don't value free shit. And if you can't build in your value very quickly, people won't understand it. And the problem is that most of the consumers that are coming in are not educated consumers. No. So if you have to stop to educate your consumer, and like big part of you're spending 4 years, like it doesn't take 4 years to teach somebody to lift weights. No. And to teach them well. The big part is teaching them to bring value, and more importantly, reinforce the value so that they can keep their clients, because it's all about client retention. That's right. Like I might be able to get you to pay me $100. Can I get you to pay me $100 every day for the next 10 years?
Yeah. $325 a month is our minimum membership. But that's one personal training session and group classes. That's where most of our people kind of lie. But the thing is, our coaches, all those disasters, all those gym drama stories you hear about, my coach has been through it all. Yeah. And I've been through it with them, if their drama, because they'll bring it every 5 years. I have a coach that goes off the handle. And then I got to go, what the fuck? Yeah. You know how it's paid? Like, what are we doing, man? You're losing your mind. You're destroying everybody around you. Like, stop. Then you get into their personal life and something happens and they're distressed. Like, that's the other thing about what we're up to is I've had a coach go through a trauma. His son got killed in a daycare accident, right?
Jesus.
And we don't publish that out there much, but I mean, it's worth knowing that if you're running a gym and you have someone that goes through a drama, or another one had a health crisis, out 9 months. Other ones that have been pregnant 9 months. I don't know if that's a health crisis, but they can't work for 9 months, right? And they get paid at home. Like the model has a way that they don't make full pay, but they make a percentage because if their clients don't leave.
Yeah.
So they're still maintaining their relationship even when they're on mat leave, or even when they're in bereavement leave, or even if, they're on health leave, and it works. In this industry, everybody working in it is one crisis away from leaving the industry. Right? That's actually Dan Yamira told me that one from Push Press. And I was like, yeah, you're about right. And what we need to do is make sure that our coaches go through life and not leave. And I think we've done an excellent job of that. Like I said, we got 3 that have been there for 17, 18 years. And all those gym dramas go away when the clients they got to put in, it's like your friends. They come here and they learn respect.
Yeah.
They learn how to treat you properly. Well, that's our first 2 months, right? Yeah. You're going to work one-on-one with someone, and they're going to teach you how to clean up. They're going to teach you how to talk to everybody. They're going to teach you not just like, here's how to do a deadlift. That's the easy part, right? Here's how to function in a proper community.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And here's how not to be a dick, and here's how to be respectful, and here's how to be fucking cool. And like my older coaches complain that it's not like it used to be, because when I ran the place, I haven't run the place for 10 years. Tom runs it, and he's my direct report, and it's become much more the way the world is now.
Yeah.
Right? A little more correct.
Yeah, he'd probably get in trouble a little bit. I find myself constantly saying things to my kids, and my daughters will be like, "Dad, like you're not supposed to say that."
Yeah, can we believe we're those guys now?
Yeah, and so I laugh with them constantly, and I think I say things more because I know it upsets them a little bit. Yeah, and I tell them, like, the world's not a kind and gentle place, even though people give you that illusion. It's a smokescreen. And most of those people that are trying to do that, it's a weird form of manipulation. You have this like. George Carlin, who I still is like, I think if there was ever a Matrix, like George Carlin was put here to be like the thorn in the side of the Matrix. Like he was.
How it really works.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if this thing's whole, we're living in some simulation in the Matrix, however you want to believe, red pill, blue pill. He was like one of those people, like the architect. He was like the comedian that was inserted into the Matrix to give people an idea of what was happening. Yeah. And he made a great point where he's like, you got the Christian right telling you, what you need to think. And then you got this other, evolved left that's telling you, what you need to believe. Yeah. And he's like, and it's all fucking basically culminating you in some massive failure, and you as an individual need to think for yourself. Yeah. And I
don't like it. Either side or any dogma. As soon as you start following some dogma and you got to follow it, it's like, fuck, dude, scaring me, dude.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, kind of interesting. Like we did, and Jacob probably will pull this number up, but we did a whole bunch of like podcasts on like psychedelics and psilocybin, and had a bunch of people come in that had all this emotional trauma. And we had Dan Engel, and it was just pretty interesting just because it's not something I'm necessarily well versed in. So I'm fascinated by not only that these people were broken, but they were finding a way to heal themselves and using kind of plant-based medicine for it. I mean, some of it was hokey as fuck. These guys are going off and doing ayahuasca retreats, and, other people fix themselves. And we had a guy come on who was a fireman that tried to kill himself and ended up getting into, psilocybin. And now he's a church here in Dripping Springs that does these kind of plant-based. So just kind of fascinating.
Yeah. And I've got a lot of friends. Sorry, I cut you off there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So we have this guy come on, but I started like reading a bunch and just trying to be more educated on it. And I found a bunch of like, there's a book called The Immortality Key, and there's another one called like The Cross and the Mushroom, where they kind of relate back a lot of like some of these early psychedelics to a lot of the early Christians and like how it evolved. And it's been pretty fascinating because it gives you an idea of like how it started and now where it's evolved into control. This is just another way of controlling people, right? Except you're doing it through this just imaginary figure. Like the joke I make when people are arguing between like what religion's the right one, it's like who's arguing about who has a better imaginary friend. And like, like if you believe in God, or you believe in Jesus or, Muhammad or Allah, I mean, whatever it is, like at the end of the day, you have to believe what you believe, but like, how do you know the other guy's not right or wrong?
Well, life is meaningless and empty. It's whatever you want to make it, is what I believe, right? Yeah. And I tell you, I've got Christian friends. They're all Americans. Doesn't really exist in Canada like it does down here.
Really?
Doesn't. No, not really.
Why is that?
I don't know. I just didn't go as Canada's kind of like we're all in the mushy middle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're all kind of not rich and not poor, and like no one's too crazy left or right. It's kind of like more in the middle of everything, more boring. We're the boringest country in the world, right? And we elect drama teachers to lead us and stuff.
That's true.
I will say, my Christian friends, I'm jealous of my Christian friends.
The greatest thing that ever happened in Canada was all those truckers in their big caravan going out to go beat up Justin Trudeau.
Yes.
That was the most prickly I've ever seen the Canadians be.
Yeah. There was a lot of that stuff going on. Anyway, I'm jealous of my Christian friends because they have a belief and they have a inner calmness, and they have they have something that I'm kind of jealous of, and I don't know. I do my prayers, but it's not it's maybe I'm talking in the back of my head, maybe it's whatever. And when I find myself connecting to whatever that is, things go better in my life. The Bible stories and all that stuff I couldn't believe. But
in that immortality key, he talks about the religion with no name, and it was a religion that was followed through this world for thousands of years, and people were connected through it, and they showed the temple or the temple of Eleusis, and they went through the Christians early Christian mysticism, which were through the Greeks, and they went through all these different kind of pieces, and every culture's had this interesting connection with some form of psychedelics. I mean, the Norse mythology. I mean, everybody had it. They kind of went through this, and they called it the religion of no names, which they were connected to a higher power. It's only been since then, more modern times, that we've connected these different names to things
to make it to control.
Well, and I always think too, what if, how do you know the right one, or could they all just be the same? When you all of a sudden you die and it's Buddha, and you're like, oh, you selected poorly. You get to go down and become a fucking cockroach.
When it comes to the psychedelic thing, I've had a lot of friends, not close friends, people that are just on the edge of my friend group that are acquaintances or maybe work for me a little while, or they're business kind of guys, and they OD'd on ayahuasca. They're doing it 280th time or whatever, and they've lost.
Aren't you supposed to do it just one time?
Well, that's what I'm seeing. If you I really believe it's great trauma, and I did a lot of personal development one place to get over a certain trauma, and your parents fuck you up. You could have the best parents in the world, and you find something to make up or whatever, and you got to get over yourself. And get all that out of you. And I feel pretty complete that there's nothing from my past or my parents or any of that stuff. But a lot of people went through some serious different traumas.
Yeah.
And I think actually gone through the CrossFit thing for 10 years. I think I still need to probably go. I go see a counselor and I go, fuck, man, this thing's, this thing just makes me feel wrong inside,
Yeah.
But I've had people that 2 or 3 or 4 times. I got one guy I surf with. It's done it 2 or 3 times. I know he got over a ton of trauma, and he explains it to me. And then I got this other guy going for the 280th time, and now he's living in a van where he had a full house, and you know what I mean. He had a full family, and now he's and the guys take off to Colombia. There's guys that had businesses in the space that got so deep into that.
So we were I was on a podcast, and Rhythmia, which is like the 4 seasons of ayahuasca, right? It's real high end. They had this retreat, Rhythmia. I think Kelly Slater's involved. So it's down in Costa Rica. So we're on this podcast, and they invite us to go. And I was like, fuck it, I'll go. I've never done it. Let's see what happens. So at the very least, it'll be a good story. Yeah. So my wife got diagnosed with breast cancer. And she went through the surgery, and then they had to do the reconstruction right about the end of the year. And so I'm supposed to leave on Saturday. Everything's looking good, and all of a sudden she wakes up the day before, and she's hot. And I'm like, we got to go to the hospital, and she had an infection. So I was like, well, I can't leave my wife in the hospital with an infection and leave my kids and all that. And,
trip out,
not that I wanted to, but I was like, Mother Ayahuasca will fucking punish me. So I ended up not going. And so when the guys came back, I was like, how was it? And what I realized, it's a lot like going to a Tony Robbins event. People are going there to cure something. Yeah. And so all of a sudden, all these people are talking about I've been raped and trauma and this. And so one of the guys that went, he's like, I realized I was never molested as a kid. I didn't have any of this shit. My parents were married. I had this great growing up. And he's like, I literally went and I felt so uncomfortable because everybody had these dark, epic stories to tell. Yep. And I had nothing. And he's like, I just after the second day, he's like, I just went to my room and hung out and didn't do it anymore because I just couldn't connect. Yeah. Where other people had this most amazing thing. And he's like, I think if you, like not everybody at search is lost, but if you go looking for something, you usually find it.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's that is, I call it the quick way to get into your trauma and get dealing with it. It's like, I don't know, I've done some personal development courses, like you're locked away for 5 days. And, after doing a few, like the first time it was like, okay. And then you see people with real trauma. Yeah. And you feel like, oh, why couldn't I had that? You know what I mean? It's like, not really, dude, I'm not really connecting. It's the same kind of thing, like, well, it's like I had good parents that are still together and, nothing really too major. Dad drank maybe a little too much at one period of my life, but it was never beat me or nothing. It was like
my mom's, my mom's going to be 85 this year. And so my mom and dad were married for like 55 years. My dad passed away in 2017. So my mom's still mad at my dad because she feels like he left her. Yeah. So I talked to my mom. She's like still pissed at my dad. She's like, God damn it. Why couldn't I have passed away first and left him here and this? So like, that's about the only thing I got to deal with. Other than that, I mean, but everybody's fucked up in some way.
Yeah. And you keep on experiencing trauma through life. I think it is good to go have a clean it, but that deep one, I think the ayahuasca is really.
I don't think I need that.
I'm good with that. Like if you start, like I listen to people sit down and they're actually figuring out business plans. Hi, ayahuasca. I'm like, dude,
this sounds great. Let's do this. Draw this shit up.
That's pretty deep in your head. Like you ever sit out, I don't rarely ever smoke dope, but if I do, I'm like can't sleep and I'm up there and I'm coming up with the most brilliant shit ever. And then you look at it the next day going, no, that's dumb. That won't work, right?
So my cannabis experience was very small. I went to Berkeley, which you would think, but my roommate was such a degenerate scumbag weed smoker. Oh, really? So he would wake up in the morning and smoke, and then get baked and go sit on the couch and eat like fucking those tubes of cookie dough. He'd like crack them and eat. Good. And
was he like a former swimmer or something?
No, he was a football player.
Oh, really?
And he was my roommate. And I would get up in the morning and I'd go to breakfast, come back, get my shit, go to class, and he would start smoking. And then come back and I'd be like lunchtime, and then he'd fucking go to the dorms, we'd eat, and we'd go to practice. He did that for an entire year. And I just thought that like people that smoke weed were like the laziest, fucking most disgusting people.
It's medicine now, dude. It's medicine.
Well, so that was my experience with it. Yeah. Never touch it. Yeah. So I'm in the NFL. And I got asked to go and do some commentating for NFL Europe. So we went over to Amsterdam for one of the games, and we're like, went out with everybody. We went to some bar, coffee shop thing, ordered beers. And this guy comes out with these like pre-rolled, and I was like, oh, are those cigars? And he's like, no, they're not cigars. And so I was like, well, you fire it up. I've never done this before. I smoked that. So whatever it does to me is an off switch.
You just
chill. All of a sudden I was like, sat back in my chair and like my eyes closed and I fell asleep.
I wish I was you.
I wish I was you, dude. To the point where I don't need any help sleeping. So whenever people ask me, I'm like, dude, this isn't going to be a good time for anybody. I'm just going to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So I'm good. I'll stay away from it.
No, I know the guys like you. I'm so jealous. I get fucking wired.
Yeah.
And like, you'll hear the only time I ever smoked dope was with these two 70-year-old guys. They're 73 and 4 now, and they're from my golf club, and nice. They're like old Republicans that sit around, drink wine, and smoke dope. It's the funniest thing ever. Nice. And they let me go off because I can't shut up. I will talk for 3 hours straight, and they somehow think it's funny. I think I'd get arrested and lose my wife if I did that anywhere else. You know what I mean? Like, anyway, that's the only time I do. And then I'm up, dude. I'm still up at 4 o'clock in the morning, like doing nuclear power equations or something. Like
so I had, do you know who David Weck is?
No.
David Weck's, he's the guy that invented the Bosu ball or Bosu ball.
That guy.
Yeah. So he's out of San Diego.
He made some money on that shit.
He made a lot of fucking money. I mean, he takes a lot of hate and he's bitter about it, but he made a fucking lot of money. Yeah. So he's kind of a fitness inventor and just kind of a really interesting dude. He's rapped a little different. But he was on the podcast and he was talking about like the visceral response that like smoking marijuana did to him. It was like he started making these faces. And I remember like looking at Jacob, I'm like, if this guy goes crazy, I need Jacob to come over the table and fucking kill him.
Might take Jacob a minute to get over that table. Right
I was like, I'm like, dude, Jacob's going to bring the boom and this guy's going to be dead. And then he asked me, I'm like, I tried it once and dude, I was fucking out like a light.
No,
he's like, not me.
No, it's not my thing.
So what's next? Obviously you've cracked the code with Madlabs or, in terms of like helping people run these kind of like micro gyms. Cause I mean, there's multiple models, right? There's the kind of like boutique 900,000 square foot personal training model where, maybe 1 or 2 coaches work or, let's say trainers. I always think humans have coaches, animals have trainers. Yeah. 1 or 2 trainers go in and they kind of work with some people and maybe they have a reformer, Pilates, and they're kind of in these little boutique-y places.
Yeah.
And then there's the micro gym which is similar to like, or is what you're discussing. And then on the other side of that, kind of like the flip of the coin, is the CrossFit gym, because you guys aren't a CrossFit gym.
We're not, no.
You know,
and people look in, they look at it, like a lot of the equipment looks the same.
Sure. But the model's different. And then there's these kind of industrial, or like just call industry branded group fitness courses, which looks like Orange Theory, which looks like F45. You know, I don't really put CrossFit in there because CrossFit's so malleable. Like your version of CrossFit, like if you, like you could put Pilates reformer tables in and put CrossFit on the name and tell people that didn't know, oh, this is CrossFit.
Our thing, you could slap them across the face, kick them in the ass, and send them on their way. That's CrossFit.
Yeah, it's CrossFit. So you got that model. And then the next big one is the kind of industrial globo, you know, gym, let's say like 24-hour fitness or Gold's Gym. But then there's another really interesting model, which I find actually the most fascinating one, which are these kind of high-end boutique gyms that are key card models, where people pay a certain amount, they can come train any day, and they can kind of use it as a kind of a personal training. Like Stan Efferding has a gym like that in Vegas, where it's a key card. And if you want to have personal training, you can show up and, you know, hire a personal trainer and come through, and they can kind of manage it. But if you just want to use the gym at 24 hours a day, you can go in and slap a key card. So,
I mean, ours has always been about a community, and one that's, I mean, it's going to sound, for lack of a better word, it's going to sound kind of
hokey, ayahuasca.
Well, it's like
dippy.
Sustainable. I mean, that word sustainable crushes me. There's a million bad things that come into my mind, but you know,
the minute somebody starts talking about sustainability, I get real nervous that they're going to start taking shit away.
I just can't think of a better word. It's like, what I'm really proud of now is, like, I have 3 coaches, like I said, Andy, T-Bear, and Sheppy, that have been there for, you know, coming on 20 years. I think Andy's got a lot more time left. Like the guys that didn't buy houses in Vancouver 15 years ago, 10 years ago, like it's kind of, we were all raising families. It's like, man, you're renting, like a house is $2 million. Shitty one is $2 million. You know what I mean? You want to raise your kids in a 2-bedroom condo. It's like 1.3 million. You know what I mean? Like, how does this really work? And I think they're maybe approaching retirement age, or moving to a small town, or like T-Bear is married to Dashi, who she was our GM for many years, and she's from New Zealand. You know, they got young kids, they can move back to their families, and that's all cool. You know what I mean? They spent their 20 years. I don't know how I can, if we had been in Nebraska or somewhere, or even around here, like we all could have had houses and a community, and like that was kind of the dream. But in Vancouver, even in Canada, the Canadian dream's kind of a bit dead. You know what I mean? Like for younger people now, most of them are never going to own a home. You know what I mean? There's no economic means to that. But I think our younger coaches have come to grips with living in that urban environment, and probably raising a family in a townhouse. You know what I mean? So Tom is taken over all the operations of our place, and he's evolved the programming to a place that's completely different than the CrossFit. It's all around longevity. And instead of us just giving people a workout, it's all about, hey, what are you here for? And what do you need? And what are you doing? And it becomes,
what are you training for?
Yeah. Like it becomes about what we're trying to do for them. And you wouldn't think you could do that in a personal training and group class model, but he's figured out a way to do that. It's still,
I don't think you can run a class, and I don't think you can train people unless those are the questions. So, I mean, all the people that are attracted to Power Athlete, I mean, that's one of the fundamental concepts of what we do.
What do you
is
do?
like, why are you here? What do you want to, like, how are you going to use this in creative and interesting ways? Like if you do this training, I mean, if it's aesthetics or just ego, that's one thing, but like, I want people to use the training in a meaningful way, whether it be for longevity, to live a better life, live a more fulfilled life. I mean, if,
I looked at all your different programs, and I was like, I was talking to Tom, I was like, it looks like he's trying to figure out what, like, we're trying to do that in a gym and in a group. I still love the group class. And if you do it right with the programming, and we're not competing against each other, there's no leaderboard, and there's a way to we're still hinging, we're still
think
squatting,
there's a way
we're still lunging,
to do that,
right?
But there's also a way to create a bigger virtual community. And so what's been fascinating, and this is what Rob and I have always discussed, is the idea of having hub centers, where you have a, let's say like a center of excellence in different places. And you have people that still want to train in their garage, but like maybe on a Saturday, they want some coaching. or maybe they want to come train, or maybe they hit up like 10 other people. Like, we have a real robust Discord. They hit up people on the Discord and they're like, hey, this Saturday, we're all going to get together and do one of the programs at here. And they kind of create it. And then they all show up, or they reach out and they're like, hey, let's do something every Saturday. So like, you're finding this way because one of the
meet in the park and do whatever you got to do or something.
But one of the biggest hurdles that we've seen for people in their execution is time. Right? Time and location and management when they can do it. If the thing that I love about having a gym at the house, I can train 24 hours a day. I don't have to get in my car and do anything. People hit me up and like, hey, can we come over and bang weights? I'm like, yeah, this is what we do. It's kind of our social thing, right? It's just like going to jujitsu, like, at least 3 texts a day from the guys that I train. Hey, I'm teaching a class. We're going to do this. You should come here and here. And so there's always a chance for me to go train. There's always people that want to come by and train. And it's kind of the social, like, I think people go play golf. Other people, I don't know, maybe they go play bridge. I mean, for us, it's like whether it be like jujitsu or wrestling or the training we do, or people want to come over and fucking run the hill in the back of the building. Yeah. So I think there's a way to create that community, but to increase the distance around and start pulling up people that are like, hey, I can only show up like one day a week. Yeah. Other times I'm going to be training in my garage, but I still want to be connected to something. Yep. And that's what I think we've done well. Power Athlete is going out and finding those people. Like I talked to a guy who's a cop up in like northern Minnesota. And he's kind of like in the middle of nowhere. He trains in his garage and he's like, man, I wish just like one day a month I could drive somewhere and train in a Power Athlete thing.
A community around his place.
Yeah. And so he's like, I work all these shifts. I come train, I got kids, but I wish I could get in my car. And if I had to drive a couple hours just to go train and like meet the people, and be part of something.
Get to know someone you know online.
It's like, And I think that's what
it's like a real date.
Well, but I think that was what was so good about CrossFit in those early days. Like I showed up to level 1 and it was kind of like, how you doing? like people just showed up because they knew it was going on and they were going to see everybody and they wanted to train and be a part and they wanted to meet new people. So I think there was a social aspect until all of a sudden it came to the point where it didn't. And I think that was the death of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, you take a look at the reason, like we've looked at, like I said, John, like I was just going after whatever worked. And how, I had an engineering degree and then I had a, green building design engineer. We're looking at things that work for 200 years and it's a different outset. And like, I would have came up with anything and I was just following where the data took us for those 6 key performance indicators so that the clients won, the coach won, and the gym won. Right now, under the construct that I was already paying rent. You know what I mean? Like I probably wouldn't have went outside that thing because I had a 5-year lease or a 10-year lease or whatever. So there was still some boundaries on how far that the gym part went or the owner part went. But we would go anyway. And we've tried every different thing. I tried, bring a friend day and all the different ways to bring people in and measured it. Yeah. Came up with the data analysis so it would be the data analysis and the coach's feeling about it and the eye test. And we'd look at it. It was like a scouting combine. You know what I mean? Like, what does the data show? What does the scout say? What does the GM say? And then you fucking all point the same thing and be like, okay, that idea of throwing someone straight into group class, that fucking thing never works. Yeah. And let's do like the Groupon thing where you had 4 people and 1 coach. And then what did the data show? And and then, how often we do a PT and a group class, and could we get rid of the group classes and do a small group or just make it PT only? Like we did everything. We looked at every fucking way we could do to maximize those 6 KPIs so that we all won. And it's hard for one group, like my coaches are still begging me all the time for them to win more than me. Yeah. So it's like this thing that is always evolving.
So has this model worked? I mean, obviously it works in Vancouver, but has this model worked everywhere that you've applied it?
It's worked in small towns, man. You wouldn't believe it. Like I've got these ones in Melina.
How many gyms are you actively working with?
About 50 now. Like I don't try to work with a lot. Like I can only take, like I already did the thing where we had 250 at a time, and you know what I mean. We're going to 1,000, and then you're producing courses. Yeah, you know what I mean. Then you're hammering them in to do. This is what you need to do. Mm-hmm. Like Audrey, who you see out here, and she's got someone that she's trained, and we sit down and say, okay, what do you want? Right? It's the same thing, and then we work closely. They're meeting with their coach every week, right? For the first 6 months.
It's really mentorship.
It's mentorship.
Yeah, I mean, you're mentoring people from cradle to grave.
We are, and then we're looking at the numbers, and then we're measuring how those numbers work, and then when they need us less and less and less, their fees come down less and less and less. Like I've got people that have been with me for 12 years, right? I got a whole group of these alpha beta people that came in, and they're like 10, 12, 8 years. And I'm like, why do you keep on paying me? And they're like, they'll still only meet with their mentor once every quarter most of the time. And they'll have all the systems, all the spreadsheets and all the tools and calculators and the coach development, because you need to be training coaches.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? They said, well, because I know when the shit hits the fan, and the gym is always trying to kill itself. It's an organism that's trying to fucking kill itself. Yeah. I don't care how good the systems are, how good the people are. Like, it's almost like a marriage. If you're not actively working on this thing, it'll try and kill itself too, right?
Yeah.
Like, some are easier. Like, I think mine's about as easy as it gets. But I mean, so this gym's trying to kill itself, and they go like, something's going to happen. Where I know you or somebody in the network's faced it, right? And that is a quick fix. It's almost like insurance for the people who've been around 10 years. Right?
Well, everybody needs a lifeline. Everybody needs somebody to reach out to. Yeah. I try to remind people, everybody on this earth has come through the same portal. Everybody was born in the same way. Everybody comes through the same portal. There's probably nothing that you're going to be throwing that hasn't already been done. And you just have to have a big enough network to reach out and figure out, like, how do I navigate this? Yeah. The one thing that never works is just pulling the ripcord and trying to blow it up into a million pieces upon like initial fucking contact. Yeah.
And if I could say one thing, if there's any gym owners out there that listen to this, or you're looking to open a gym, what works and what you're told that works is about 180 degrees opposite directions from each other. You know what I mean?
The problem with, and Greg actually said this to me, he never ran a successful gym.
No.
He told me he couldn't get out of the gym business fast enough because he never made a fucking dollar.
That's right.
The minute that he started selling certs and traveling and teaching people how to train people and giving people advice on how to run a gym, that's when he made his money.
Yes.
And so I like you, I had a lot of access into some back end information. And when I tried to run my gym, I had the gym and we started teaching CrossFit football, and I kind of went full time into that. Yeah. I've realized that, if you like, what is it? The man who sits on multiple seats sits on no seats.
Yeah.
So if you want to be really good at something, you have to focus on
core competency.
Yeah. And, and that was something that I think I had the gym and I kind of kept it as a legacy, but really, online training and teaching seminars and doing what, actually Greg suggested was actually much better for me because I liked it. I wanted to show up and teach my methodology to new people every single weekend. And I got to do it hundreds of times until all of a sudden, CrossFit didn't want to have that relationship anymore. But, that was a long time coming.
Yeah.
I always feel like if you
didn't stay within the lines,
if they weren't mad at you, you probably weren't doing anything good.
Yes.
And that was like my barometer. If they weren't pissed and coming to me about something, I probably wasn't doing what I needed to do, which was servicing and providing a good product.
Yeah, and evolving and getting better. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like the level 1 cert hasn't changed in 15 or 20 years. You know what I mean? It can't, because it's a copyrighted thing that's now trademarked stuff. Like it's like, my coaches, it was quite a long time ago now, 5 or 7 years ago. And I had 2 or 3 coaches that went to it, and they started like raising their hand and arguing with the person up front, and they couldn't answer the questions. And some of the methodology and some of the things are just simply not true. Not true.
And science
is not how it is.
Science has proved that, maybe 20 years ago, that's what they believed.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the mechanisms for hypertrophy. For years, we believed there was like metabolic distress, and there was all these different mechanisms from it. And, within the last, 12, 16, 18 months, they figured out that really the biggest driver, really the only driver for hypertrophy is mechanical tension and mechanical failure. You got to create tension in the muscle, and you got to get to the point where like the muscle grows bigger in response to not being able to do something.
Right.
So if you're not like working towards failure, or at least real close, then hypertrophy. And so, I mean, it's not overly complicated. It's just they thought there was a whole bunch of different mechanisms for it.
Someone's trying to make some money figuring out a new way to do things.
Well, the idea of muscle confusion, that somehow, confusing your muscles, and Greg kind of was still in that kind of, constantly varied movements performed at high intensity. Yeah. Well, we also know that the same movements performed at high intensity are better drivers because you have better efficiency at those movements.
That's right.
So like some of this stuff was like, Greg's like, and even, but that goes back. Was that Tony Horton, the muscle confusion guy?
I don't remember.
You don't remember that?
I was always the business guy. Yeah. Like I was kind of jealous of you and Rob because you had something to fall back on. I had to make my gym work. The only reason why I was here because I was fucking dumber than you guys, and I just had to make this thing work.
Yeah.
Right. So I fucking grinded away for 20 years, and you guys found something like water will find its own spot. Like Rob found his nutrition level. You found your thing you were good at. I didn't have anything else I was good at.
Yeah. So I guess figuring
I like the people, and I love my coaches. Right. Yeah. So we figured that out.
So is the idea to kind of work with those 50, or, how, like when the
I don't want to grow. I tell you
what, VC guys came to you, I mean, did they want you to implement, MATLAB systems over the course of like a global
Well, I just simply told them like, fuck, I'm not a good fit for you. I walked out because it was like, hey, we already tried that. Yeah. Like I blew my brains out in 2014 to 19, 15 to 19. Like we thought we were going to be software as a service, and we went down all these paths to try and, we used to call it Moosecock, which was the gym that took anybody in and was like, you know, that the Groupon one, the $1 a thing. Oh, that's the Moosecock gym down the street.
Yeah.
The branding and marketing people that, you know, I have a very small team now and they're very close and they don't like that stuff. I guess we had to get away from that. That doesn't work in the new world of Moosecock. But we were Moosecocking to gyms. Like, you know what I mean? I remember at this point, there was such a frenzy of people coming in when I did Rob's podcast.
Sure.
And I did the Wadcast podcast. I wrote one article and the fucking world went mental. And we had like 1,000 gyms trying to join. And like, I didn't have the infrastructure to have it. And I should have stopped everything right there and said, hey, I can't take you, you know. And I spent the next 8 years of my life hating life. I spent day and night trying to figure out what model we're going to work to actually help these gyms get to a place that they're happy. The gym owner's happy, the coaches are happy, the clients are happy, everybody's working. So we scrapped all that. I threw at least $1 million worth of like off the not custom built software and fired 23 people. Like I did it all over again. I did every mistake all over again. And a lot of good people went the wrong, like if I could apologize to everybody for that, I didn't know what I was doing. You know what I mean? Like we thought we could scale this thing ourselves and make millions of dollars, I guess, and try and train gym owners and coaches at scale, which is still people trying to do that. But then you're cookie cuttering it. Then you have to trademark it. Then you have to make it do this only this way and smash it down people's throats. And it's a course. The people are buying courses or programs, right? That are built, that are made for the masses, and that you have software to run it. And I did it all, and it destroyed my life. Like, I'm just starting to come out of it now.
Well, was it because it didn't work, or was it because it was just too overwhelming?
It was never going to work, because what we do in the gym is find out, what are you here for? Yeah. How can I help you?
Yeah. So
what do you want? You know what I mean? Like the bots and the emails and all that stuff is not going to do it.
It can't be like I mean, there has to be 5 buckets, right? Like everybody that walks through the door has to fit into 5 buckets. And like I always thought, like on this kind of global scale, if you were to kind of take your model
buckets.
And like 5 buckets, right? Like I need to get in shape for something. Like I got a wedding, I got a graduation, I got this, I got like, that's kind of the short term,
it's
like
my
physical.
Least favorite bucket.
Oh, I know, I hate it.
Well, maybe not least. I don't love that.
But like somebody comes in like, hey, I got a wedding, I want to look good. So like, okay, that's a short term, right? Like that's an easy bucket. There's a longevity play, right? Like I'm here to be more fit. I want to be able to play with my kids for a long period of time. There's the performance deal. Like, hey, I'm looking to do something. Like I want to be better at surfing. I want to run. I want to do this. There's the injury bucket. Hey, I'm injured. I hurt my back. My doctor told me I need to start lifting weights, right? Is probably that one. And then probably like the last one would be, I don't have any friends. Yeah. And this looks like a pretty good place where I might be able to make some friends. The amount of people that I know that have met their significant other.
I don't mind that bucket that much. I didn't think, like at one point, you know, Greg was like, hey, you're going to meet a lot of people you wouldn't hang out with. Yeah. And, you know, you're going to fall in love with people that are got club feet and like pallets and shit. Right?
But so I think if you could sit down and almost look at those 5 buckets, and then when people come in the door, you could build a model and kind of basically put almost like an archetype type coach for each person. All right, so I got these 5 buckets. I got 5 coaches, right? When these people walk through the door, we assess really quickly through this survey, whatever it is, you find the right fit for them. And that's my guy. You're the fucking get in shape for a wedding. You're the, you know, I got this, you know, my 30-year high school graduation coming up and I want to look great, right? We got 6 months. You're my guy. Then you have a program for it. And I think that piece, almost like creating archetypes like we did at Power Athlete with like Jack Street and our different programs, are based off of a certain archetype. Yeah. So I thought that if you created a facility, like let's say you had like, you know, Madlabs HQ,
Yep.
right? And like, if it was like a key card where people come to train, group course, like whatever it is. But I think you have to figure out what makes each person spin and then tap into what like allows them to be sticky. And whether that be personal training, group courses. Because I knew people that did personal training and never wanted to do anything else.
Yeah.
And then I knew people that were just doing the group, one-on-ones to try to get into the group course. Can I just do can I pay the money and skip in? No. And like we did the same thing. I think we did like 3 or 5 one-on-ones. It wasn't enough. And it was because we just didn't have the manpower.
Yep.
And more importantly, my coaches were really shitty at teaching one-on-ones because you have to have conversations with people.
Yep.
And, you got to get to know them. You got to be on time. You can't be a fucking asshole. You have to give them a little boutique stuff. You got to help them clean up.
That's why I think that one thing that came out of the last 12 years of evolving, like I think I'm on my 9th iteration of our coach development and our owner development stuff. And I feel I'm in a really comfortable place now as I know everybody that comes through does really well. I'm like, Audrey, how's that girl in Burns doing? Or how's the dude that just joined from Baltimore? Or how's the one over in Australia? And I'm like checking in every month, and then she's showing me the numbers, and they're stoked. And I call them up. I said, "Did I lie to you? You're good." Like 3 months in, 6 months in, year in, and they're happy. Mm-hmm. And that is more from the personal relationship that they have with Audrey, guiding them through the morass of training that we have. And it's not like we couldn't just start here and end here. It's got to be okay. You need you're going to go in and situational analysis what this gym's got. So everyone's got a different fucking thing going wrong. Sure. And there's a triage of them. Right? Like, okay, you got a coach that's got their specialty program that's taken over this thing, and you got a bunch of asshole athletes that think they're special. Yeah. And you're making no money from that, and they're destroying your whole business.
It's the fucking worst.
Let's deal with that one first. And that's the awfulest one, right?
I have professional athletes, and like there is a very real
so special.
Yeah, like, hey, I'm a professional CrossFitter.
The identity, the role, everything's exactly the same.
I'm showing up at 9 a.m, and I'm going to be here till 3 o'clock and eat my lunch. And they're like, get the fuck out of here. You guys have a specific time. Go home.
Every gym, almost to the T. I don't think I've ever met one other than if you go down the full Invictus road that has that CrossFit Games thing back in the day, or they had the specialty program around the superstars. Yep. And then you're trying to run a real gym that ever did any good for anybody or made any money or anything. But anyway, so Audrey's going to meet with somebody. First thing we do now is we never did in the past is we do an audit. We take 1 month and go over everything that's going on in the gym, interview all the people working in it, obviously meet with the gym owner and the GM or whoever's in there. This depends on how complex and how big the gym is, right? Could be anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months. So we're going to go in there and do a full-scale audit of what the fuck is going on in there, and then figure out exactly what they want, and then have a 2-year plan to get 2 years, right? It's a 2-year plan. It's month to month. People cancel whatever they want. Like if you're not loving this after month 1, tell us to fuck off. And we used to do, like at one point in the marketing, people told me to roll it all up into a course and charge $12,000. So we'll take 20% and we'll do, we'll market this whole thing, which is kind of the whole world out there. And you know what I mean? Or you buy this course, buy the Invigorator, or buy the Instiller, you know what I mean? They're buying courses, right? Because they're all doing a group class with some personal training, a model that is completely fucking failed. Mm-hmm. That model's failed so many thousands of hundreds of millions of iterations.
Well, you said,
it just fails, man.
Like when you said 150,000 gyms have gone out of business or changed hands based off of the insurance guys.
Yeah.
I mean, like
most of the new ones have already 10 times. Most of the ones that are coming for insurance, most of the gyms that we see are at least 5 that have the same brand.
Where they flipped hands.
They're 5 times minimum, some are 10.
So at, if the estimate of 13,000, right? And you think
in Europe, in the US, I don't think it's more than 3. So globally, I've got a guy right now that used to work for me for 12 years, moved to Czech Republic. His wife's like, I'm out of Vancouver. She's Czech, moving back to Czech Republic. You can't make a living here in Vancouver. You can't get ahead, which I agree with. And they moved, and he is in Czech Republic. He said, dude, there's CrossFit gyms here everywhere. Europe is still growing. That's what he told me. Right? Yeah. So that's possible. It's possible, right? But they're all going to do the same. He said, dude, we need to get him now. He's like doing my Instagram stuff. And he's like, man, we can help out these gyms. They're doing it all the wrong way. And, you know what I mean?
Well, years ago, we taught a seminar in Denmark at I cannot remember the name of the CrossFit gym, but they were the biggest CrossFit gym at the time, and this had to be 2010, 2011. Mm-hmm. They had 800 members. It was fucking massive.
Right.
I mean, it was unbelievable the amount, like to the point where we were teaching a seminar for 50 people, they partitioned the gym and they had like 150 people working out next door.
Is it urban, obviously?
What was the name of the...
Because they had a real problem with land use restrictions, and they would have a problem with zoning and all that stuff. So if one guy got in and got big, he'd be pseudo protected. So they probably have a more protected market there, but at least they didn't eat each other. With like in San Jose, there's 40 guys in the industrial park.
Touch your mic. Oh, sorry. I can't remember the name of the gym, but it'll come up here in a second. God, Butcher's Lab.
Butcher's Slab?
Yeah, it was the name of the gym, Butcher's Lab.
Butcher's Lab.
I wonder if Butcher's Lab is still in effect. Let's look it up. I haven't thought of that name. Oh, yeah, they are. They still are in Copenhagen, Butcher's Lab, dude. They are, they're still
a CrossFit affiliate?
I do not believe so.
Yeah, that would probably make sense. But
first CrossFit box in Denmark. They have a competition, Team Butcher's Lab. They look like maybe they're still a CrossFit.
Maybe.
But the people loved it. I mean, they, but I also think too, it's a different culture, especially in Europe and Denmark and those homogeneous countries where, you go to Denmark, you go to Sweden, you go to Finland, and everybody, I mean, I don't know how it is.
It's not as cutthroat. I mean, it's definitely social. I mean, there's no more cutthroat country than the U.S.
Well,
right?
I think the reason, and I don't know what the demographic is now. I know they've imported a lot of people from like Africa and whatnot. Yeah. But at the time we were there, like everybody looked like they were related.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard.
Denmark's like, yeah, they're super. I doubt they're importing many.
Well, but I mean, when we were in like Finland and Sweden and Denmark and those countries, like everybody looks like they could be cousins. So it's really hard to fuck over people in a homogeneous society because you could be fucking over your second cousin and everybody kind of looks alike. If somebody doesn't look like you, you're like, fuck these people. At least that's my impression.
Yeah. The more socialist the country, I think the less likely. And it just works a little slower. Like they don't kill each other as fast. You go to the third world, it's even way crazier than the U.S. Like in Bangkok, we had the first gym in Bangkok.
Nice.
And there's a bunch of them. Like I'll have to think of all the different names. Well, Bangkok I knew as I'd been there.
It's a big tourist place for Australians.
For everybody almost, right? But yeah, Australia's big time. Like they go to Bali a lot too. Anyway, people aren't making very much money, and one guy opens up. And then the people see, holy shit, this guy's making a bunch of money, or there's a bunch of people there. Open up. Like it was like that thing spread. Like I was going to do an article called "The Beast."
Wasn't it Dave Driscoll? He was he has a gym, and I think it's in Bali. Dave Driscoll.
Yeah. I know that name. There was a CrossFit Bali. We know one of my early clients, Di Manuel, became a kind of a early Facebook influencer.
Wanderlust.
Yeah, he trained there for
Wanderlust Fitness Village, Bali.
Yeah,
and he does retreats and shit. Yeah. So I remember meeting him a long time ago. He used to train in Orange County. Now he lives over there and he's got a gym, and so he's got a good-looking girlfriend. He takes a lot of pictures, and they hang out in bikinis and Speedos. I mean, good fucking life, dude.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go, Dave.
Yeah, Dave Driscoll, killing it.
Russian life.
Is there so? It sounds like the boutique nature and the one-on-one aspect makes it very hard to scale. Like, for example, CrossFit comes to you and they were like, admittedly, they're having trouble getting people in the door, right? Because the brand has become so watered down. Yeah. And like, I don't like, there was a point, and this early on in CrossFit where there was kind of a fight club kind of edginess where it's not for everybody. And the first day you show up, you got to fight. I mean, there was this legitimate fight club mentality. Yeah. Now it's kind of become this, like South Park makes a joke about it. I mean, I'm watching Family Guy and they're making fun of CrossFit. So it's kind of taken this. The coaches, are not really prepared to train people. And you know this because you've done this from the front side. The level one, even the level two, doesn't prepare them. Like if, for example, a professional athlete walks in the door, and this was something, when the NFL had their lockout in 2009, the amount of calls I got from people being like, Jesus Christ, you got a bunch of NFL dudes here. Help. What do I do? Don't hurt them. Like they just weren't prepared for people that were legitimately going to train. And they don't have business systems. So, Greg's kind of free market bullshit where, what is it? The wheat will separate from the shaft, and, the cream will rise to the top with the best. I mean,
it did rise to the top. They all left. That's the problem, right?
Yeah,
you rose to the top and left. I rose to the top and had to leave.
It was bullshit because all it did was fill his coffers.
Oh yeah. I mean, all of it. I mean, every bit of that whole, like I got into all the books. He gave me I got a 3-year book reading club of all the, the Chicago School of Business and Milton Friedman and F.A. Hayek, and I read them all. And that whole libertarian thing, it was all to make money. It was all to make money at the end of the day.
It's fucking stackable bars in a gun safe. Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah, it was all to stack bars in a gun safe.
Yeah. I mean, God bless him. He put me through years of torture with trolls and lawyers and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm okay now. Like, it's fine. He did what he had to do.
I always remember that you own the URL CrossFit.ca.
Yeah.
And that was like a real big issue for him. And I remember one of the lawyers, I can't remember if it was Dale or one of the guys, we went to some big meeting down there and we were sitting across and he kept talking about defending the brand. And after about 3 or 4 minutes, I realized that he was talking to me about defending the brand against me.
Yeah.
And we got into a conversation. I'm like, how the fuck can you give me the CrossFit football name?
Yeah.
Like, how can you give me that URL? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I do a training program that is neither CrossFit and doesn't coincide with any of the CrossFit principles. So if anything, the fact that you license me to use this URL and this name is actually diluting your brand. And he like looked at me and was like, oh, like he like somehow I fucking figured out like, some, equation that was unsolvable.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, dude, like I know exactly what's going on and like, how do you do this? And that was a big issue. They went back and, they had to go back and clean up their IP because, Greg, go, be, achieve, I don't want anything. And then all of a sudden he fucking gets into the demons, and next thing you know, he realizes the error of his ways.
I signed some documents. I can't really talk about it.
That's
fine. I mean, at the end of the day, even after that was settled, I understood their position. I mean, but I built my own brand inside of that for 10 years. And it was, that's.
Well, could you have, I was
happy to be out of it.
I don't want you to perjure yourself or, go against your NDA, but I mean, was there an issue where you potentially own the CrossFit trademark in Canada?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I actually could have won any of the lawsuits. But
I think you could have won that one.
But you can't defend. I mean, for what? It was like the CrossFit Kids thing. I mean, they killed themselves for what? Right? Like I did the math.
He bankrupted them.
I spent a lot of money, and I was about to get married. Greg was actually supposed to come to my wedding, and I'm like, okay, what are you doing here now? And like, why do you want the brand? And I was like, you can't protect that brand. You've already got out of that brand. Like, what are you holding on to here? So I cut a pretty quick deal, and it was still ugly for a bit, but I got the thing done and got out of it. And with all the emails, we're going to run you over the train, and I was like, dude, you could have it. You know what I mean? Like, and my brand now is my brand, and we've been building that brand for 12, 14 years. And
like we did. I mean, we were building brand loyalty into a brand I didn't control and I didn't own. And the day that somebody explained it to me, I fucking launched Power Athlete.
Yeah. Same here.
And then they were super prickly about it. I'm like, well, I don't own your fucking brand.
Yeah. You won't let me.
And you won't let me. Yeah. And all I'm doing is building brand loyalty into something I don't own that can be taken to a single deal. And now all of a sudden you're upset.
It can be taken from you in 1 second.
And now you're upset.
And it was, right?
Yeah. And then, but thank God I had something else to jump into.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people didn't, like the CrossFit Kids people. And, we're going off of a certain assumption and promises being made that all of a sudden, once the lawyers got in, we're like, no, we can't say this.
Yeah. That they perfected the playbook on me before they took them. And I told them you shouldn't, you know what I mean? Just, anyway, it nearly killed them. Like, I remember seeing them I remember seeing them physically decline. Through that. I felt awful for them. But I mean, even if you win, what do you win?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If you don't have your health and your happiness and do something you put you in a shitty position.
Yeah. It's like for us, like, I mean, at one point, we had there was so much money coming in, there were so many people into it. And it was making me really unhappy, and it was making the people around me unhappy. And to be honest, 1,000 gyms, all branded Patty's gym. Like, that seems like a nightmare. That seems like I would get so far removed from life itself. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck, who would I even be then? And what would my life look like? I love my life and my wife and my kid and our community. And all I want to do is be known for integrity, and everything that I say, I do. And nobody can come out and say, hey, this fucker lied to me, or this guy cheated me, or anything. And it's just straight up honest with every single person you meet every day. And we can do that. So, I mean, I'd love to have $10 million in the bank. I don't, but I could have taken the money. I did not. So that's a choice. That was a choice.
Yeah, no, I think what's interesting, what I'm taking from this conversation is I think that there is a way to create a brand, and it's probably not 13,000 gyms, and it's probably not fucking 150,000. Mm-hmm. Like I always remember Rob and I sat down and at dinner and we talked about drinks. Like if you had a collection of somewhere between 75 and 150 really well gyms that were mentored by older gyms that brought in young people, and there was kind of a play where, you were partners with the people. Like let's say, there's an entity that, loans money to go purchase the land. So now all of a sudden it's like a McDonald's play. You're not in the burger business, you're in the land business. You go out and you find locations and you partner people, and the branding is really slick and the equipment and everything looks good and it's run within a certain way. And, there's a central cog to allow people to feed in and have a little bit of individuality, but make sure that the coaching is well done and it has a methodology, and you're able to work with different people and find the type of people that you want and offer them some resources that I don't think anybody else will offer. Some of the stuff we've been doing with longevity, I think we are as far along in terms of helping people live to 125 years old than anybody else.
I'd love to hear some of that.
And whether it be through, the biologics and some of the things that, we had Dr. Adil Khan and the Eterna guys that are doing all this genetic modification to help people. I mean, Rob Steele about, muscle and longevity and, testing and all this stuff that we've kind of created. I think there's a model for this, but I don't think it looks like 13,000.
Yeah, I love when Rob gets talking like that. I could sit around and listen to him all day.
Oh, I can too.
What I mean?
I fucking love it. And we've talked at length. I mean, for a number of years. I remember there was always this talk way back in the day that Greg always had this fear of an alternate brand, that something was going to pop up in this alternate brand that was going to scuttle them to the point where it sounded like, I remember like paranoid delusions. That somehow I
suffered from the barrel of that gun many times.
I mean, and I did too. Yeah. And I remember talking with Rob, and Rob's like, maybe it's something that already exists, or maybe it's something that doesn't have, isn't here today, but evolves and grows. And he goes, I think what happened is, a lot of like counterculture stuff. When Greg originally started, kind of thumbing his nose at step aerobics and this, I mean, the counterculture piece fit, but then all of a sudden the problem is once that counterculture becomes the culture, now all of a sudden it's fucking.
Once you start following Curves as your leader, it's fucking done. And that happened in 2006 or 7. That Curves, he talked about Curves a lot. I'm like, what?
He never mentioned Curves to me.
Oh yeah, that was like, I think he learned quickly not to do that. And I didn't tell anybody at the time. I was quiet about that for 10 years, like until that meeting with those guys in that fucking boardroom in London. I was like, oh, that's why the fucking guy loved Curves. I see, and they followed it. And look at F45. I don't know if you follow that one, but that we went. I got invited to speak in Australia in 2018.
I know Gunnar Peterson. And they brought
was
Gunnar
he the CEO that sold all the money?
No. So Gunnar is he was like the Kardashians, trainer, coach, and he works with a lot of high level people. He's buddies with Mark Wahlberg, so they brought him in on that deal. We've been talking a little bit about
money on that too. I mean, we went over to Australia. I was speaking in front of 300 gym owners, coaches, and I just started getting peppered. Right, and then I was like, "There's too many." It started overwhelming. I said, "Well, I've got a workshop tomorrow," and then like 20 or 30 gym owners, 5 F45 gym owners, man, they were just all over it. And they were all in distress. And I was laying out all the economics and the 6 KPIs and then the 9 laws that you got to follow to achieve those 6 KPIs. And then they were like, this is amazing. I started taking all the stuff down. And then the next day they came back and it was like, HQ won't let us do any of this stuff. Anyway, we ended up hiring a couple. They ended up paying us, and we tried. Some of them were so early in, they tried to break their agreement and do the things we were trying to tell them to do. And they all fucking went out of business. You know what I mean? And then they bring it over here, and then it is Mark Wahlberg and the IPO that at $18, the CEO, Jex, and now it's at 2 cents.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I know people that bought 3 of them, right? Our kids went to daycares together and stuff, and they bought them, and then they started selling them. And there was so attractive a model, remind me early CrossFit days. One person selling a new one right beside one they own.
Wow. Like people show up and they're like,
what happens next? The new one steals the GM from the one they own and then steals the coaches and then emails their whole list 10% less. And HQ doesn't, they don't care.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, that's, and they rely on, for the people still listening, if you're a gym owner or a coach, they rely on directly in the group class. They rely on like filling up as many people as you can. They rely on really, really simple coach training. It takes a few days, paying the coach by the hour, low barriers to entry. They're all the things that'll destroy you down the line, right? I know because I watched them slowly come apart, and anyway, I get called negative sometimes, but I tell you, I want that model just to be destroyed, because you see what it does to everybody's lives inside of it, except for the people at the top.
It's like a Ponzi scheme, right?
Yeah.
Like the Ponzi scheme. The only person that makes money is at the people at the top.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
they can get out before they get arrested somehow.
Well, it's kind of like socialism a little bit, right? So socialism always evolves into communism.
Yeah.
So, but if you can get early in on socialism, like Stalin and those guys were beatnik hippies, and next thing you know, he's walking around in a military uniform killing 20 million people. So you got to get in really fucking early on socialism to get into communism, because once they get into power, anybody that has more than them is the enemy. So then they just slit in lots of throats.
Right.
So you got to get in early.
Have you seen it was a Happy Father's Day one with Justin Trudeau and Fidel Castro?
Yeah.
They look exactly the same.
I'll tell you a little known story on
Margaret
this.
Thatcher was hanging out. Margaret Trudeau was hanging out with Castro.
My uncle used to run around with Justin Trudeau's mom.
Yeah, she was
a big play. Big playboy. So my grandfather, I said,
so did the Rolling Stones. And Mick Jagger
was pretty well to do,
yeah.
And he was in the Vancouver Yacht Club. Trudeau's grandfather, who was the head of fisheries, the minister of fisheries, I think, he was in that same yacht club. So then there was a lot of parties, and my uncle used to like to party a lot, and used to hang out with her a little bit, and had nothing good to say about her, but made the comment that she went on a little deal and was basically having an affair with Castro.
Yeah,
and so and
could be
allegedly he's the love child, as per what my uncle said, who was in that circle at the time.
He doesn't look anything like his father.
Nope.
His father, I went to McGill University.
Yeah.
And his father used to live on there. His father was, he was brilliant. He was almost self-made man. His father was Trudeau's father was in petrochemicals. But he was pretty, I ran into him in the street a couple of times, like all alone, just me and Pierre Trudeau. And he was the legend in Canada back in the day.
Yeah, it was a good dude.
Yeah, he would always say hi and what's going on and the whole thing.
It looks nothing like his fucking kid. That kid looks just like Castro. So it's funny, some of the guys that are follow our program that are Discord are Canadians. And so they always, I kind of told them that story a little bit. And I wouldn't have believed it, other than the fact that like my mom co-signs on it, and she's like, "No, it's possible. Your Uncle Ed was in that circle of people, and for him to say it, and he's got no reason to pull any punches."
Yeah. Yeah.
So
we've gotten all the way to Castro.
So the love child of Fidel Castro, and what's crazy is periodically, I mean, I don't know if you'll meet anybody. It's kind of like here in the U.S. Like it's hard to meet people that voted for Biden. Like when you meet people, like very few people. Like I'm not a Trump fan. I think he's kind of ridiculous. But I also realize
choices are quite awful.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
You got a guy with dementia, or a dude with like crazy hair and a spray tan who makes like literally the Dunning-Kruger effect. If you look it up in the dictionary,
Dunning-Kruger,
the Dunning-Kruger.
I don't know this one.
Oh, that's when Trump gets up there and he's like, "I'm the greatest there's ever been in anything. I know more about this than anybody."
Yeah, shot 57 the first time I played golf.
Yeah, he's like just makes these preposterous claims.
Yeah.
And
Danny Kruger,
he's just kind of a crazy. And what's wild is we're in a country
narcissistic personality disorder
of 330 million people, and probably the greatest. We're not really a democracy, but this mega power on the world stage, and we're picking between two guys that
it's hard to believe.
Yeah, I mean Biden. He goes into like they show him, wanders off. You got Obama bringing him on. Like I can't even talk about it.
At least Mitch McConnell said the sense to step down after taking strokes on camera and stuff.
Oh my God! Well, do you remember his hard
Stump
drive?
and I got into that one.
Well, his hard drive crashed. You see him and he was like, oh, he just completely glossy-eyed him. His heart crashed. What was Stump's take on it? Like, what the fuck?
Stump went off, and that dude, we're putting people. It's whoever's putting him up there. It's an irresponsibility.
I've always said that the greatest form of elderly abuse is what Joe Biden's wife is doing by pushing that old man up there. He's up there defecating on himself. He's up there lost. Like, that can't be.
No, it's crazy.
Like, how nasty are those people to put that old man?
It's funny no one can come in. There's a power structure in both of those. Like, I'm Canadian, so I don't really know.
They're going to kill Trump. Like, there's no way. Like, there's no way they let Trump. I mean, they're trying to prosecute him. Now he's got 34 felony convictions. He's probably still going to run and win.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think you'd have no choice but to almost vote for him if you wanted the country to come back to reason.
Well, but they're all controlled by big pharma.
Well, even the Republican National Convention, they're there, and they what is the power? Even like if you look in the Democrat thing, and I don't know much. I'm just asking questions. You got like Nancy Pelosi, 82 years old, still kind of hot, I thought. Andy said no.
She's
like, how is she still in power? Why is there nobody in their 40s or 50s that can't push that out or come in? Like, everybody at 50 years old a pussy or something? Or what the fuck should you guys be in your age doing that now? No?
Well, she's probably really like 400 years old. She's probably a lizard that just assumes different
she
skin.
Did power athlete for 20 years.
No, she's a fucking lizard person. Like, I don't know. At this point, if you told me that there was lizards that were underground that were wearing human skins, that is more probable to me than the fact that the only two presidential candidates we get to select for is an 84-year-old that's in the deep throes of dementia and a guy who's almost 80 who spray tans has got crazy orange hair that makes preposterous claims all the time and wears ill-fitting suits.
Yeah, it is obese, I guess.
Well, I mean, but like just the fact that his ties are too long and ill-fitting suits. I mean, the guy's a billionaire, dude. Like, get a better tailored suit. Yeah. And on top of it, like, did you see his lawyer?
All my suits, I guess.
Well, did you see his lawyer? The guy that he just had this like terrible county sheriff of a lawyer come up and represent him because Trump historically doesn't pay his attorneys.
Yeah,
and the problem is if you don't pay your attorney when you're in fucking trouble, there's not very many people coming to your aid. Yeah. And I know this because my dad, my brother's a criminal defense attorney, and so that's what my dad did. And it's like those are the dudes that you want to pay a retainer for and make sure that you're always plus in their book. You never want to be minus in their book because when you call,
my lawyer, a meal or two here right now,
dude. If they're plus in the book and they got money on the books for you, they pick up the call. If they owe you money, they ain't picking up that call. It's just how it works, dude.
Yeah.
But I just can't imagine in this country that we are so broken as a power structure that these are our only two choices. Now, if you came out and you said that they're all lizard people and this is a massive conspiracy like the movie They Live from the 80s with Roddy Piper, I'd be like, okay, that's at least more probable to me than fucking Joe Biden got 81. Well, that Biden got 81 million votes. So Trump got more votes than Obama. Which was more than any other presidential candidate, and then Biden got 81 million. And it's hard to find people that say they voted for him. Maybe people are just embarrassed and like, fuck, I don't want to
be worse, dude. You could have Justin Trudeau. Could be worse.
You know what bothers me is the way he sits down, where he crosses his knees like he doesn't have male parts. He like sits like he.
You watch him more than I do.
Dude, I'm pretty sure I saw a meme that says Justin Trudeau sits when he pees, and I was a bumper sticker on a Canadian car, and I was like, that's pretty funny. I want to try to get one of those.
Well, JT showed up in our neighborhood a little while ago. Went to my coach that lost his son that went to their house, and that he was like WhatsApping us beforehand. We're like, beat the fuck out of that guy, kick him in the stomach. You're close enough. You can take a shot at him, right? Dude, you could take him. You could wrestle that fucker. He wrestled in college. You could wrestle that fucker to the ground right now. There'd be no, I don't know, Canada's version of Secret Service. There's probably 3 old guys hanging out there anyway.
Well, you would think in this cancer culture society, he's got all those blackface. I mean, has all those inappropriate
things. He's the champion for that shit.
But right? I mean, he did it. Like they have all the pictures of when he was in school and blackface.
And he's firing these female impression employees, and like he fired one over a scandal. It's like he's doing it all wrong and has done it all wrong, but yet he's the champion for the other side. Yet it's so hard to figure out. I just like, dude, I try not to think about it too much. I just know that the economic policy and the way they're going down, they're going to bankrupt the country. I mean, they just spend and spend and spend and spend, and now they're taxing the rich, and it's just, I can't go on, right? Even our liberals before them with Paul Martin came in and just, they have to cut all this. They got to cut a whole bunch of this wasteful spending. Right.
Well,
anyway,
the problem that we're running to in this country, and this is something Rob and I have been kind of noodling on, in 50 years, this place is going to be a fucking desolate wasteland. I'm going to have a lady on the podcast, and she's a big gut biome researcher. So we've been talking a bunch, and we were going through a bunch of the numbers, and she's doing a big study on like autistic children and like, why they're autistic. And it kind of goes, and she can kind of figure out based on the spectrum, how much gut bacteria they are. And it's happening within, like, more importantly, like the gut, and the absence of bacteria is why this thing's kind of going on. And so my son's type 1. So we got him tested, and she looked at it. She's like, I know he's type 1, but at least he's not autistic. And my comment was like, can you tell by looking at the gut at his gut stuff? She's like, 100%. I've been doing this, and I'd like these. We're in a study and went through it. So her thing is by 2045, 2050, there won't be a child born in this country that doesn't have autism. It's a one-to-one. So now we have a situation where we're, poisoning ourselves with environmental, whatever, food supply. You get through this. I mean, we're on this, collision course with all these,
You're making me want to drink, John.
Well, and then on top of it, now with all the COVID stuff, I mean, you saw the relationship where, now like, the amount of people, young, healthy people that are getting cancer. And I know this from Tom Incledon, has been on the podcast, Causenta. They work with a ton of cancer patients. And he's like, the amount of like people in their 30s and 40s that are healthy, fit people that are coming in with cancer is exponential. Like this isn't something like we've seen a spike like we've never seen. Like their cancer rates are rising, but it's like peaking. And he's like, so we're in a real crisis.
You're well, I think I cut you off there, but I'm going to go with this one. But you were talking about Rob when he starts talking and us trying to create like our health, fitness, nutrition, that's this thing.
These are these centers, man. These centers of excellence.
Yeah, I think you almost got to sit back like the founding fathers of the U.S. Constitution and figure out how it could fuck itself up. You know what I mean? Like,
well, because here's I
don't think they can't even be a brand.
No,
I mean? Once you start protecting the brand, I don't know, man. Like I've seen crazy stuff. Like this kills it.
Yeah, no.
That's why I don't want. I've been approached many times about having MadLab branded gyms. I can see myself going down a bad path, and I can see it now. Now I got to turn into this. Whip people to do fucking things, and you know what I mean. Like it's like I chose not to do it. And everybody has their own brand, and just teach them how to build their own brand properly, and teach them how to do their own thing, right?
But I think you need identity. I think you need to have something that's bigger than who you are, so that people understand what they're getting themselves into.
There was some kind of a
like
affiliation doesn't work. We already know that.
No,
one.
it's like a bad. It's like a bad
mechanism.
It's a bat signal. Right. Like I think what you need is it can't be an affiliation, because the problem is if you leave people up to their own devices without some form of like mentorship and guidance, they're going to fuck it up. That's just how it works.
That's right.
Right. So you have to create something, but then you have to find people that are champions that understand the magnitude of what they're doing. And then you have to, be able to mentor them and keep close. That's why I was saying it can't be 13,000.
Pretty much what we're doing now.
It's got to be
how do you scale? Like the only way I can scale now is to scale Tom and Audrey. Right.
Well, but now you have to replicate. But the problem is you've spent 20 years to build those people.
That's right.
So how do you find people like that? And the issue is like, how do you burn through them? Like, how do you get people in and find those people?
Right.
And then if here's another issue, we run into this. If people are really good, they're going to go do it on their own. So you have to be able to find those people and sell them into something bigger than themselves.
Well, in our gym, that's why our coaches never leave. There's never a better opportunity anywhere for them to go. And that's through the mechanism of scaling the group class, and they get paid for their client, stuff like that. And I think there's a mechanism where, Audrey scaled herself once. So that's very difficult to do. Tom is scaling himself once, but that's never going to happen fast, because it's going to fucking same as a coach takes 4 years. Well, it probably takes 3 to 5 years for any one of these positions for someone to be good. You know what I mean? Like I worked for 2 Fortune 100 companies. I figured out I only worked for them 3 to 4 years. So they never made any return on investment on me, right? It cost them, at least $500,000 to train me.
I think you got to develop coaches faster. And I think there's a method to developing coaches faster that involves,
the free market has to teach them that they're good or not, though, John. We can fucking sit here on a high horse or not. Like I tell them, like Tom in our system 10 years ago, he was being an asshole. And all the other coaches go, who this fucking snotty kid? And I just went to him. I said, keep your mouth shut until you can make $10,000 take home 6 months in a row. Then you can talk.
Yeah.
He put his head down. He went and did that. Then he came back and talked.
Yeah.
Right. Because if he's no good with the clients and he can't build a book of business and he can't interact with all these other coaches and do all the other shit right, then it's all fucking made up. And we push people through. Like, how many coaches were pushed through to train a group class before they knew how to do fucking anything? Right?
No, I mean, I think there's two sides of this coin, right? There's like the benevolence of like, is this needed? Are people going to like people are going to need like a central thing? Like I'll just give you an example. I have just bought a cow, right? So I got a freezer full of meat. The gut lady we're working with is like, hey, I want you to vary proteins. I like you to do lamb. I want you to do beef. And I want you to do buffalo. Yeah. So then I reached out to that farmer and I was like, hey, do you have anybody? Oh yeah, no, I got this friend. And he plugged me into a buffalo guy and a lamb guy. So I got to go pick those up. But like, I always think if I need to increase performance, I need to be healthier. I need this, like, who can I call? Who can I trust?
Yeah.
Casey Bard, who's my buddy that runs Tactic Calories, which is this badass fucking spice and sauce business. Casey, healthy individual, ends up getting cancer. He has this kind of weird kind of colon kind of deal like down on his liver. They came to him and they were like, we don't have a treatment for this. You're just going to be chemo for the rest of your life. So he does like 23 rounds of chemo, gets on some form, finds out that there's a doctor that's done this surgery before in Pittsburgh, reaches out to the guy, goes in, the guy does the surgery, removes it, and now he's cancer free. He's like, if I hadn't reached out, if I hadn't had lifelines, and I think what happens is people feel so siloed. So what they need is they need trusted experts and they need places to go. Like the amount of people that reach out on our Discord and like, hey, I'm having this problem. Who do I talk to? They listen to this podcast. I mean, the amount of information that go through. I mean, Rob's my other one. Like if Rob doesn't answer my question or I don't answer Rob's, I don't think it exists. Yeah. So I think you have to have these centers of excellence in these hubs where not only can they point you in the right direction for, like performance and for health and longevity and you hear people today, like, is this bullshit? I get this one all the time. Hey, somebody pitched me this. Is it bullshit? And I'm like, I don't know enough about it, but I'll research it. Something. And I know somebody that knows about that.
So that we've done that sort of through our community and through our network. I'm honored to be here with you because Rob, and Rob's my personal hero. Honestly, I think he's like the strongest, bravest dude I've ever met. For what he took on back in the day. Before I even understood what the fuck he was doing, and it took me another 5 years to even understand what he had done.
The amount of people I've met that when I ask them who's the most influential person in the health and performance space and just like health and longevity, that without a doubt, without even blinking, and I say Rob Wolf.
Yeah. Just for his balls more than anything. And he looks like a fucking nerd. You wouldn't even think it's him. You know what I mean?
He is a fucking pit badger.
Yeah.
Like Rob is he is a fighter. And when he gets mad about something, and he sits down.
He kind of flies off the handle. Like he's got no.
He's great.
I love it. Like, fuck it. I got to tell the truth here. I don't care. Where did the chips fall? Like, Nikki must have to talk him off some ledges.
It's great. I love it.
Yeah. And he's beautiful.
But but his ability to like give of information and like, without expecting anything. Like I've met people that have been like, Rob Wolf's the most influential person I've ever met. And I'll be like, that little fucking nerd.
Dude.
And he's great. I mean, he has thought through things. It's, I'm a Jordan Peterson fan. Like I really appreciate.
So am I actually. I've come to listen to it, and we have people in our gym that hate the dude. Like even mention the name. So I started listening just because
I can't understand why people hate him so much.
You just haven't listened to him.
No, like
they heard it from somebody else. He's a cunt.
Yeah,
right?
And
can I say the C word?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. But he spoke here in Austin. And so I've read his books. I've heard him speak before. Like I really appreciate the level and the depth at which he goes into these social problems. Intelligent. Yeah. So I go hear him speak, and it was 45 minutes of verbal masturbation of him just getting up and, Emperor's New Clothes deal, where everybody was just excited that he was in the room, and he got up there and fucking babbled for 45 minutes.
Did he? No good.
People were in tears, like there was a religious moment. I got up as a rhetorician and being like, he didn't say anything. He just fucking did wordplay for 45 minutes. And the guy that was supposed to be his moderator was like, oh my God, this is the best I've ever seen you. And was just
I think it is going a religious thing. Like I've heard some of these talks, like the end of some of these talks get to this.
Well, he's gone deep into the Bible.
Yeah, there's something there at the end of it that kind of like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Yeah. I mean,
that doesn't surprise.
He's a thoughtful dude,
Yeah.
and I believe that there is a desire in him to provide guidance for people that are lost, and however he does it. But yeah, I mean, so when I hear people attack him, I'm always like, fuck. I like to think I'm a pretty perceptive person, and I've never heard him say anything that I felt was
that one interview with that British lady there. She tried to trap him over and over and over.
He's too sharp. Well, and I don't understand why the Canadians.
I was trying to figure out how can I learn to do that. You know,
you got to be real good.
Yeah, that's smart enough.
Well, he was also a clinical psychologist for like 30 years.
Yeah, who would know that better, right?
I mean, he had a great one on Rogan where he was talking about cross dressing and transvestites and this idea of like men, and he's like, it's a sexual thing.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, how do you know? He said, because I was a clinical psychologist and I dealt with these people. It's always sexual. Yeah. And whether or not they say it is and they want to go do these little kids, it's always sexually based. Yeah. So therefore, how can you put little kids with having drag show, story readings in this?
I've had my son do a drag show for a breakfast place I showed up to unwittingly. He didn't like it. I kind of liked it.
You're kind of like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah. That's my regular server. Oh, that's Jose. Jose's in that dress. Oh shit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but
yeah. So I took him to that before I listened to that Peterson thing. It made me really think about it because I was like, come take a picture with Brax, and he was like, dude, this is not okay. He was just like instinctively. He's 8 years old. He was like, this is not okay. I don't want to really do something with this. You're kind of making a show of me here or something. He had an instinctive thing. Yeah. That didn't
stranger
vibe. Danger. Yeah. It was like, he had something there that I recognized after listening to that story. It's like, oh, okay. Fuck yeah. Okay. We don't need to deal with that.
My deal has always been, the beauty of this country is somebody's life or a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You have the right to live the life that you want, unabated by what I think, which is fine. Yeah. I don't ask you permission to live my life. Yeah. But you also don't have the right, or you are not guaranteed that I don't think you're an asshole. Yeah. And I also don't have to approve of the life.
Yeah, you don't have to convince me that it's cool.
Right. Hey, live your life. You don't have to you don't need me to co-sign.
You don't need my approval.
You don't need my approval. I might think you're an asshole and I disapprove of it, but you don't need my approval. And the fact that you're going out there demanding my approval, and if I don't give it to you, I'm a bigot or a racist. No, it's
glad you put it that way. That's been stirring on my head for a while. I've been trying to come up with that. That's really well done. You don't need my approval. Dude, you're not going to give it to you, so fuck off.
I don't ask you for my approval. Like I didn't call and say, "Hey, can I get married? Can I have kids?
Can I go get shit faced?" Yeah, by myself?
No. Like I like, hey, like this is the car I'm going to drive. Like I don't ask anybody's approval or opinion or permission for anything. Yeah. So why do you need my approval and my permission in this to live your life? Just go live your fucking life.
Yeah, I'm not going to go put it in paper though, or write about it and try to demean you. That's maybe what they're trying to back. Well, off, I mean, you know what I mean? They're trying to back people off of that one.
I don't give a shit. Yeah. Like
the Bill Burr one with the female soccer.
Oh yeah,
why do I got to give a shit up with female soccer?
Well, like gay marriage, for example. I'm like the minute that all of a sudden they started charging for a marriage license, they started letting file joint tax returns with being married, and they were giving deductions, and it became this like financial obligation in this contract, here in the US where it was a legal thing. Like you can't deny these people from being married. Like if two guys want to be married, like fuck it. Go out and be married.
You also got to get divorced too then.
Yeah. Well, and I always think like, hey, at the rate of divorce, the rate of divorce is even higher in same-sex marriages.
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah. And it's, it's just the case. So like we protected this group of individuals, like let them be married. Like if there's a tax implication and there's insurance in this, like you can't deny them this. And I don't have any problem with it. Now if you tell me like it's a covenant before God, well, if it's a covenant before God, how come I get a tax deduction for being married? And how come I got to split my property when I get divorced?
Right.
It's bullshit.
Yeah.
So like you can't deny people this. If two people want to get married, like let them get married.
Yep.
Like I don't have any issues with that. But at the end of the day, like somebody shouldn't be forced to have to make them a cake for somebody that they don't want to. And I shouldn't have to be able to go, or it's just like I don't know where we got in this position where everybody
forced
had to
make
be.
The cake is a tough one. Then it's different than like you can see if you had a restaurant and there's whites only or something like that's a different deal than
somebody comes in and they're like,
you
hey,
got to make me a cake. Right?
Yeah, I don't want to make you cake. You know what? If you don't want to make me a cake, I don't want you to make me a fucking cake. Yeah. I don't want to go out, like you're saying, I don't want to go out and drink beer with people that don't want to drink beer.
There was a crazy lady in Vancouver. Well, it was a trans man, whatever. And they went around to massage people and then forced them to massage and then sued them if they didn't and stuff. Like 14 of them.
Yeah.
Because there was a human rights tribunal thing, which is not a real court, but there's real consequences. It blew the whole system apart, right? Most of these people are poor immigrant people that open up a massage thing or maybe an esthetician thing, or it's like a Brazilian wax thing. There was the Brazilian wax one and forced them to do it stuff. It got gnarly, dude.
Yeah, I mean,
Brazil was Brazilian waxing.
Yeah, you know what? If some dude wants to come in and get his his butthole waxed,
yeah, I have to do
fucking do it. Pour extra on there, it gets scared.
That I'm forced to do it though.
Well,
he was saying you have to do it.
Yeah,
but it was for women only. But he was a trans man that they had to do it. It was discrimination.
Pour that shit all over him. Pour honey and rip that thing out. Like I feel like that's the only way you're going to get that even.
You might want to outsource that.
Well, but like people have, like I just go back to, man, people have the right to live the life they want, and if you want to do it, that's fine. But like at the end of the day, you don't have the right to hurt kids, and you shouldn't indoctrinate these kids into anything. And if you try to indoctrinate or hurt my kids or put anything, we're gonna have fucking problems. And you don't need my approval for anything. Yep. Like, live the life that you want. If you want to do it, do it. Like, who cares?
Well, this is the thing. Do you have the right to open up a franchise knowing that all these franchises are going to go bankrupt and you cash out early? Do you have the right to do that? I think that whole model that we're getting back to should almost be criminal. That's what I'm coming. That's where I'm getting back to.
This is something which is Matt, who you've been on the in email contact with, and I have an interesting kind of perception of this. So there's the golden rule. The people that have all the gold get to make all the rules. Yeah. So I think the higher you go up on the rung, the less the rules apply to you, and it becomes more about what you want, more so than what's right. Yeah. And I think
then you got to find other rich people to prosecute you.
Well, no, but I mean, think about it. Like being right's expensive, right? Yeah. So like like you said, it was more important for you to be truthful and right, and it financially hurt you. If you had been a bigger scumbag or wanted to fucking just, pull the wool over people's eyes and just go along. And I always joke too, like the person who shepherds them into these bad situations, the guy that reaches out knowing it's a Ponzi scheme, but still suckers his friends, and he's able to cash that out. Like, you got to be pretty morally bankrupt, or you have to have so much money that morality doesn't affect you anymore.
Morality doesn't affect you anymore is probably where it sits, where it's just everybody's a chessboard on the game, and those people are just the poor people that you stay away from. Yeah. But anyway, dude, there's one new one after the next. It is unbelievable. And I know that eventually it'll get found out. I don't know if you've seen the one with all the bar thing, that training thing, bar.
Oh yeah,
it was pure bar.
Bar method.
Yeah, and there was all these shopping malls with basically soccer moms and stay at home moms and real estate agents and people that middle managers in some company open up all there's tens of thousands of these things all over the U.S. and one thing operating this thing. I wish I should have I researched it and I've forgotten what the names are and the specific people, but it is the exact same model. And then they force them to follow the model, and there's bankruptcy after bankruptcy after bankruptcy going on with that thing right now.
So can it be fixed?
If you ask me, I would love to talk to the new CrossFit guy. We want to hook it up. I had a conversation with the first guy, and I tried to tell him you have a retention problem and you have a coaching problem, right?
No, they know that. I mean, we talked about that.
Yeah. So the way to fix it is to be honest, John, I can't believe it. We still have CrossFit gyms that contact us, and we can help them out immediately. I wouldn't have thought that's possible with the brand, and I've been out of the brand for 12 years. We teach them really, really simply, after we go through the whole business, and we start off with one-on-one consult with every new client.
Oh, that's crazy.
3-day assessment with every new client.
Wow.
And have the coach have some measure of training how to deliver those two things the best that they can right now. Right.
So what's the fastest way to get people prepared for that? Stand up, make them go to open mics, or let them work a door at a bar?
Well, it's interesting you say, because both of those would work extremely well.
Everybody that I know that's ever worked the door at a bar or a club or anything, I can tell pretty quick whether or not they've done it. So Arash, one of the guys I train with, similar deal, and super personal this, and we even have talked about it. And he's like, oh yeah, there's the guys that have done that. I mean, I did that too. You learn how to not only talk to people, diffuse and this, and he's like, that's a skill that people need to learn.
Oh yeah, stand-up comedy would be the hardest thing ever. I did my first job. I did 9 months of sales and product training before they would put me with a mentor for another 6 months before I could do my first sales call.
Wow.
Yes. A year and a half before I was allowed to talk to a client on my own. That was their method. Johnson Controls, right? Emerson Electric is another one. So, I mean, and they can, like, for us, it used to be always 10, and now it's just 3, but you wouldn't believe the stoke. Like within 2 or 3 months, training them, and whoever's leading it, whether that's the owner or a GM or head coach, whoever, they go in there, and the first time they ask for $300 for like a 3-day assessment. Yeah, no problem. Right? Yeah. It's super easy. It's not that fucking hard.
Yeah.
People think it's way harder than it is. It's actually not that hard. With a little bit of sales training and a little bit of like communication training and enrollment training, like you're enrolling someone in what you do. Like, you know, come in and do the free class so I don't have to talk to you to enroll you in what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Right? And if you like that free class, then join. It's a cowardly. It's what it really is.
Yeah.
It's avoiding the hard conversation of why are you here? How can I help you? And what I do, will it solve your problem? And do we want to work together? Straight, fucking straight. And you know what? Sometimes, like, my coaches have the right every time to say, no, I don't want to work with this person. And that happens.
Yeah.
You're better off not to be here. You're better off to go to the CrossFit gym down the street.
One of the other questions I ask people is, what is your measure for success? That's another big one. Like, how do you know that this was positive? What's that measure for success?
Yeah, what's our measurement?
And so we do annual consults. Like if somebody buys a program for a year, we do kind of a deal over New Year's, and then we'll do consults. 1 year I did like 300 consults where I got on the phone and I got to talk to 3 different clients a day for almost months. And it was every day I had 3 of them. It was 15-minute consults. Some of them went, 10 minutes, some of them went an hour. But the first question I asked is like, how can I help? What do you need?
Yeah.
How can I make this a better experience? What are you solving? How can I fix this? And then what's your measure for success at the end of this? And the amount of people that I've talked to year after year after year, it's like, hey, we've done this consult 3 times. Are we closer? 100%.
Yeah.
What did I do? What did I implement? How do I offer you a better product? Yeah. And the biggest one is people want more content. They want more interaction, and they want more boutique experience, and they want to feel like, that they're not alone in this thing. Yeah. And that was, like I said, that cop that was in Minnesota was the one that gave me the idea. He's like, man, I wish there was like a place that was a branded center of excellence that I could go where if I was having problems with something, I could show up and train, I could maybe get some coaching, but then I could go back and I could kind of work between it, and I could still live in this kind of ecosystem community. And that was something I've been talking to Rob about. I'm like, what does that look like? And so that was kind of where we were noodling. But I think it really comes down to finding very skilled owner operators that understand the magnitude of what they're doing. And it can't be just transactional.
No, it can't be just selling like one cookie cutter workout. And it's got to be like, who are even your target clients? You know what I mean? Like, I got to say, in our gym now in East Vancouver, it's a pretty progressive place. You know what I mean? Like the demographics of the people in there's a lot of people that never go to a gym. There's a lot of people that are not first pick in the basketball game. You know what I mean?
Nerds.
Nerds. Lots of people just on the outside of that, like all the way down. So it's those people never want to leave, though. You know what I mean? Like,
well, once they get indoctrinated in the community and they start feeling better and they're training and this and they got somewhere to go, like that to me is like people will show up and train and feel and feel connected to where they feel welcome and where they like the environment. And that's I think that's like you can create that if it's something bigger than you. I think the issue with the CrossFit is people don't know really how to define it, so they don't know how to really sell it. And I think Greg was so polarizing for so long in the CrossFit community that people just kind of looked to him, and then whether or not you agree that he poked his head up at the wrong time and had to sell his company.
Canceled. He pulled the chute.
I go back in this and it was like, did what he said was really that bad, or was it all the shitty things he did leading up to it that, did he poke his head up at the wrong time? 100%. Did he, for what he said, did he have to sell his company and fucking hemorrhage and, and do what happened? If he had stayed, would the brand have completely crumbled for the woke mob? I don't know. But he got an exit, and he basically got to cash out of maybe a dying ship, but I don't know. He already had a safe full of gold, so who knows if he needed that money or not.
Yeah, he sold at a pretty good time. And you look at the model of how they made money was the level 1 cert. Like and that thing was already a dying thing. You know? So anyway.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, dude, if people want to know more about Madlabs and maybe want to, reach out and see about you helping them, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, I was thinking about, the scariest thing for people, and like when I saw that forum and all these questions, it was like people still doing the free day, the free week. Like, I mean, we do a free intro, but that's like if you go to see a lawyer to say, hey, I got a problem, you're probably going to sit down with the person. You're not going to sign a check before you meet the lawyer.
He's going to either hit you for an hourly or for a
retainer, or whatever, right? But you're not going to pay before you show up. So I have a really good product that I created a branded page for you. Madlabbusiness.com / Power Athlete Radio.
Nice.
Right? Power Athlete Radio.
Awesome.
Someone figured out that would SEO better. I was just like, go power.
Yeah.
Madlab Business Power. Like,
no, we'll make it specific. Okay.
Yeah. So in there, there's a $97 product. It's called PT First. It's videos and how to teach someone how to do a one-on-one consult, how to do a 3-day assessment, how to do 20 personal training sessions.
Do you teach them how to go pick up people at a bar too?
If they can learn to do that, they don't need to be here.
That's the problem is these kids today just fucking scroll and swipe. Yeah. And I was like, I make jokes about whenever like obviously younger kids or whatnot. I'm like, dude, I was like, how many of you guys think that we could go out to a bar, you could walk over and actually
how many guys are picking up people at a bar anymore?
I was like, let's go to a bar, and I like legitimately want to see you. Like the Brazilians I train are fine with it. They all have girlfriends because they, but I wonder if these kids, I'm like, can you guys go to a bar and actually meet a girl and get to know her and hold eye contact and not fuck around on your phone and put it in your pocket and actually
have the courage to walk up there.
Yeah. And then be like, hey, let me get your number. I'll take you out. We'll go out on a date. It's not going to be weird. I'm not going to text you at 2 a.m. being like, show me what up. Yeah, asking for dick pics or something. Don't make it fucking weird. Just be a non-crazy person.
Have you ever heard of the book called The Game? Neil Strauss?
Are you fucking kidding me? The Bible?
Changed my life, dude. It just looks just like the Bible. And there was like
dude, I
met my wife right when I was reading that book.
So that book is hilarious because I was in a bar in Hollywood. And I had read the book, and these guys came in and were trying to run the whole fucking game.
Cube or the best friend,
dude. And I called this guy out because we were talking to these girls, and this guy tried to come over and like neg them and do this whole thing. Yeah. And I was like, "Holy shit, Neil Strauss, The Game! I read the book too." And I was like, and I totally called the guy out, and he got all nervous. Yeah. And I was like, "Dude, you're running the," And the girl's like, "What are you talking about?" I bought the book for those girls, and the one girl was like, "Motherfucker." Yeah. This shit happens to me all every time. Fucking
jealous
weekend.
Girlfriend routine.
Yeah.
Dude, it was a great way to meet your wife though. Like Audrey read the book before I met her, and I was like, listen, you better get on my lap here before the friend zone kicks in. Yeah. She looked at me and went,
wasn't the word like schnogging or something? Those guys were like trying to like make out at the bar with the girl and like mystery and
mystery.
My friend Jen Wiederstrom, I told her about the book and she bought it, and I got to hit her up to see if she's finished it. But like that book, I mean,
dude, it was awesome. It was fucking awesome. I don't give a shit what anybody says, because what it did was allowed you to have a conversation with a girl or a group of girls and realize who's fucking crazy or not. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the girl, like I've run the jealous girlfriend routine at least a couple of dozen times. Yeah. And the one that comes over the board and goes, "Okay, he's going to dump her." And then, you get this person who's like, I don't know. Well, how does the situation work? Or, it's this real thoughtful, intelligent woman is asking more follow-up questions, and the one that's been burnt with a bad dad, like you can see it. Like you can see what you're going to get into. Yeah. It would save you a year and a half of a bad relationship.
I know. I mean? And then there's like, even when you, then the other problem I run into is even when you knew that it was the wrong one, you're like, wow, she's so much hotter. I'll just go this direction.
Yeah. Done that one.
Yeah, that was a fuck up.
Because if she's really hot, she must be a super good person with a good dad too.
No. I mean, that was like the big one for me. It was always like, tell me about the relationship with your father.
Yeah,
that was always like
about the relationship with your father.
If you got a good, that's why.
And mother too.
I have twin daughters, and I tell them all the time, I'm like, Dad loves you. I'm your biggest fan. And I joke with my daughter Jamie all the time. I'm like, at some point, some boy's going to try to come in and run some game on you, and you're going to look at him and be like, this doesn't work on me. My dad loves me. Fuck off. Yeah. And that's the line I tell her to say to these guys.
And he's doing jujitsu and he trains and he's a fucking mountain too.
Yeah. And so Jamie does jits too, but they're good kids. So, awesome, dude. I appreciate you putting that link together for us, and we'll put that in the show notes, Jacob. Yeah. It'll be in the show notes.
Madlabbusiness.com / Power Athlete Radio. So there's the PT first, then there's half off $1,000 product, which we have is MadLab 101. Which is
there'll be 10% off of Neil Strauss's The Game.
Yeah,
if
Neil
you guys
Strauss's
haven't fucking read that, go read that.
And there's a link to talk to me. Anybody who wants to chat with me, if you want to call me up, don't waste my fucking time. But if you're serious about talking about how to run a great gym, what we're doing is just how do you run a great gym, right? I mean, we talked all about those shitty gyms. They're shitty gyms. And if you're putting people straight into a group class and paying a coach 4 nights and by the hour, you're not going to run a gym. You can never run a great gym. You can't. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks,
cool,
buddy.
Dude. Thanks, brother. Thanks for tuning in. Another episode of Power Athlete Radio. See you. Hey there, Power Athlete Nation. Big shout out to all the heavy hitters who stuck around till the final whistle. If you've been soaking in the knowledge bombs and epic tales we've been dropping for free, here's your chance to be a game changer. Swing by klfi.com/powerathlete and toss a few bucks our way to keep the podcast fueled and firing on all cylinders. That's ko-fi.com/powerathlete. Your support makes a difference. See ya.